10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning, distinguished guests, dignitaries, partners, volunteers, colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to RUBARU 2022. I am Akshay Patil, and it gives me great pleasure to see you all here today on this bright Saturday morning as we gather to celebrate the children of rural India. Let us begin the event on an auspicious note with the lighting of the ceremonial lamp and an invocation song.
ஆதிலட்சுமி தேவிக்கு அழகாய் விளக்கேற்றி பஞ்சுத்திரி போட்டு பசும் நெய்தனை ஊற்றி குங்குமத்தில் பொட்டியிட்டு கோல மஞ்சள் தானுமிட்டு பூமாலை சூடி வைத்து பூஜிப்போம் உன்னை திருமகளே. திருவிளக்கை ஏற்றி வைத்தோம் திருமகளே வருக, குலம் விளங்க எங்கள் வீட்டில் கொலு இருக்க வருக. அலைமகளே வருக, ஐஸ்வர்யம் தருக. அலைமகளே வருக, ஐஸ்வர்யம் தருக. திருவிளக்கை ஏற்றி வைத்தோம் திருமகளே வருக, குலம் விளங்க எங்கள் வீட்டில் கொலு இருக்க வருக. வசலிலே மாங்கோலம் வீட்டினிலே லட்சுமிகரம், வசலிலே மாங்கோலம் வீட்டினிலே லட்சுமிகரம். நெற்றியிலே ஸ்ரீ சுப்னம் நெஞ்சினிலே லட்சுமிகரம், நெற்றியிலே ஸ்ரீ சுர்ணம் நெஞ்சினிலே லட்சுமிகரம். அம்மா நீ ஆதரித்தால் அகிலமெல்லாம் இன்பமயம், அம்மா நீ ஆதரித்தால் அகிலமெல்லாம் இன்பமயம். அஷ்டம சித்திரையுடன் லோகமெல்லாம் சேமமயம், அஷ்டம சித்திரையுடன் லோகமெல்லாம் சேமமயம். அலைமகளே வருக, ஐஸ்வர்யம் தருக. அலைமகளே வருக, ஐஸ்வர்யம் தருக. மாவிலையும் தோரணமும் மங்களத்தின் அடையாளம், மாவிலையும் தோரணமும் மங்களத்தின் அடையாளம். உதுவத்தி எறிவதினால் உள்ளத்திலே ஒரு வாசம், உதுவத்தி எறிவதினால் உள்ளத்திலே ஒரு வாசம். அம்மா நீ அருள் புரிந்தால் அகிலமெல்லாம் அலங்காரம், அம்மா நீ அருள் புரிந்தால் அகிலமெல்லாம் அலங்காரம். அன்னாடும் பாடிடுவோம் அஷ்டலட்சுமி திருநாமம், அன்னாடும் பாடிடுவோம் அஷ்டலட்சுமி திருநாமம். சங்கு சக்கரதாரியே நமஸ்காரம், சர்வவரம் தருவாய் நமஸ்காரம். பத்மபேத தேவி நமஸ்காரம், பத்ம தமிழ் காப்பாய் நமஸ்காரம்.
Thank you, our students from Tamil Nadu, for the beautiful rendition. With that, we begin the event. At first, we have the welcome address by Mr. V. Ravichandran, Chairperson of eVidyaloka Trust.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to one and all of you participating from across 225 cities in 21 countries. Welcome to eVidyaloka's RUBARU 2022. The theme this year is all about an inclusive approach for sustained impact. And what better platform to examine this than eVidyaloka. Our organization today reaches 5 million children across 147 districts in the country. We teach these 5 million children through our 610 plus digital schools and digital classrooms in as many villages in 6 different languages. Over 54,000 registered volunteers help us in this effort. This effort will not be possible without it being a movement that involves the society at large and unleashes the power of good of technology for an effort, a grassroots effort like ours that reaches this entire country and is able to help in the process of nation building. The COVID is possibly the best chief technology officer that I have seen. It unleashed a change. It unleashed the digital adoption in 2 years to a scale that we had never fathomed before. Every nook and corner of this country today is capable of being connected. And people have changed and have adapted to this, what we call as a new normal, and the use of digital in everyday life. This also happened in our field of education. We were able to reach many more children thanks to adoption of digital learning platforms. We expanded our reach not only through our digital classroom program, but built technology and our app so as to reach children through mobile phones, through computers. We were able to use the power of television. We had to forge different relationships over these last 2 years thanks to the move from just the digital classroom to across multiple ways of reaching children. We approached corporates and our well-wishers with different requests over these last 2 years. We wanted them to volunteer for us for teaching. We wanted them to volunteer to create content. We wanted them to volunteer to help us with digital marketing. And so many of you came forward to do that. I'm really happy to state that today corporates are funding us not just to set up digital classrooms and run live classes, but also to create pre-recorded content. They're also funding us to reach millions of children through cable television. 2 really noteworthy alliances that we struck this year were with a content developer, eCourse, and I'm sure Somveer will be very happy that he has made such a difference with his organization to create digital content for us that reaches over 5 million children today. I'm sure Waves in Bangalore, which is an aggregator of cable television operators from across this country, will also be happy that our reach is increasing day by day. Waves helps us reach these 5 million children. Their reach is actually 200 million households. So just imagine our content being unleashed into 200 million households. That is the power of the community and technology coming together for nation building. eVidyaloka also saw few other major achievements this year. The first one was extending our services from not just from 5th to 8th, but also to reach up to 10th grade. We also did an experiment with coaching 139 tribal children in Andhra Pradesh to take a shot at the IIT and NIT exams. I am so thrilled to state that of the 139 children, 89 children were successful. 29 have joined IIT. Of these 29, 12 are girl children. and 60 were able to make it to NIT. This is inclusivity. One of the best things that happened to eVidyaloka this year was the announcement in the budget 2022. The finance minister has announced a significant investment into education and the setting up of 200 TV channels. But the best part was she named it eVidya. eVidyaloka is bringing in the power of technology, community participation, corporates, individuals, bringing them all together for a common good. We are able to today educate the children of our future so that they become proud participants of the economy. Let us not be known as a generation that left behind a world that is polluted, that changed the climatic conditions for the worse, that unleashed global terrorism on itself, but rather as a generation that left behind a world that was filled with love, that was able to solve its own problems by community participation, by unleashing the power of technology for common good. And eVidyaloka can help you do that. I am looking forward to your continued support in the years to come as we transform and leave behind an amazing, lovable world for the generations of the future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Under your able guidance, we have reached new heights this year, and we look forward to your continued mentoring as we aim bigger in the days to come. Friends, we now have a message from our chief patron, Professor V.K. Krishnamurthy, former Deputy Director of BITS Pilani. Professor V.K., as we fondly address him, has been with eVidyaloka right from day one, and it is with his blessing that we renew our pledge in bringing quality education to rural India day after day and year after year. Can we have the message, please?
Friends of eVidyaloka, I have great pleasure to be able to participate and bless this entire eVidyaloka universe. It is now beginning the 12th year of its existence. It has been doing monumental Lokasangraha work for the past 12 years. I think it is the only one of its kind in the whole world. I am amazed to note that 6,000 volunteers are active in about 150 districts of the nation. May I add my prayers as well as congratulatory blessings to all the youngsters who are seeking knowledge and all the elders who are imparting that knowledge. Knowledge, you know, is the only thing in the world which is simultaneously invaluable. It cannot be valued. It is unsaleable. It cannot be sold. It is imperishable. It will never perish. So may I impress upon the several thousand student and volunteers, knowledge-seeking youngsters, as well as the elder volunteers, to remember the tradition of this nation. The tradition calls for all of us to avoid 6 evils that will stand in the acquisition of knowledge. What are these 6 evils? Nidra, Tandra, Bhaya, Krodha, Alasyam, Dirgha, Sutrata. Sleep, disinterestedness, fear, anger, laziness, and procrastination. These are the 6 evils. Please avoid all these 6, both students and teachers. And may I also remind the student youngsters in the form of a blessing from a kural from Tamil world. Mahan Tandaikku Aatrum Udavi இவன் தந்தை என் நூற்றான் கொல் எனும் சொல். The way of showing filial devotion to parents, is to make others exclaim within the hearing of the father and mother, what penance the parents must have performed to beget such a son. I wish you all good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor VK. Your words of encouragement will always remain with us in this journey of serving the children of rural India. Friends, it is an honor to have with us Dr. Sridhar Vembu, Padma Shri, who has kindly consented to be the chief guest for RUBARU 2022. Dr. Sridhar Vembu is an accomplished business magnate and the founder CEO of Zoho Corporation. He is noted for taking software and product development functions from urban centers into the villages of India. He conceptualized and introduced the Zoho schools, whose aim is to provide vocational software development education to rural students as an alternative to formal university education. In recognition of his entrepreneurial spirit and his commitment to the cause of rural education, the Government of India awarded him the Padma Shri in 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, we now have the address by Dr. Sridhar Vembu.
Welcome. I want to thank you for inviting me for this RUBARU event by eVidyaloka. And I find this event particularly providing the connection between urban and rural children really fascinating. This is a very interesting approach that you are taking. And I want to applaud you for this effort, this initiative, and all the people involved, the volunteers, the corporations that sponsor it. And as for our own initiative, what I am trying to do is to provide rural children through our school, which is called Kalaivani School, provide our children the really world-class education in a rural setting. And these students come from very humble backgrounds. And my hope is that by investing in them, providing an education that is really whatever the best of urban children get, along with a very practical bent. I'm a believer in education learning by doing. So this is very project-based, very early childhood. It is Montessori methods. As they get older, they start doing a lot of projects and science through projects, even mathematics through working out real problems in the farm, in the locality, all of those, estimating numbers, estimating, for example, population, and all of those types of things we teach by doing. And then organize drives locally in the village for cleanup. These are the types of activities we are planning. And we have seen that in Zoho, our employees, in some cases employees, relatives, say mothers or sometimes spouses and other relatives, they have all volunteered for these initiatives. And we are seeing really good people with an urban background wanting to serve in these villages, which is very vital for us to take our nation to greater heights. And with more than 50%, 60% of our population across India in rural areas, and much more than 60% of children in rural areas. Let's keep in mind that urban areas, even the percentage of the population by weight, they don't produce as many children. People come to cities and they don't have as many children as people in villages do. So which means even bigger majority of children are born in rural areas. And the future of those children is the future of our nation. So all of us have a vital stake in making sure that our rural children get the best opportunities. For that, companies like ourselves, companies like Zoho, we have to invest in rural areas. That is what we are doing. And we plan to expand this much further in the next few years. And I'm happy to see eVidyaloka doing this, and I'm happy to learn from your experience. We will work with you to learn from your experience doing this and see how we can benefit from this for our own initiative. My goal is to create the kind of school we have created in this one village where I am right now in Tenkasi, and spread this across 100 villages. In particular, I'm focusing on these interior villages that are not on the main highways, because that's where a lot of the challenges are in terms of access, exposure, all that. These children deserve a break. That's why I moved myself here. And I am encouraging a lot of our own employees to move with the understanding that Zoho will invest in good facilities. So also invest in schooling and all of that, and healthcare. All this we will invest in. And we are also combining it with a return to natural methods in farming that takes care of, that respects the soil, that respects nature, and go back to our traditions where we look at nature, the nature goddess, earth goddess, as sacred. The very ground we stand on is sacred. That we need to get that spirit inculcated in us so that we take care of the earth, take care of the ponds, take care of the trees, take care of the animals, take care of snakes and insects, bees. All of that are vital for our own future well-being. So this is the spirit I want to inculcate in our own kids. Along with it, train them in mathematics, in science, in technology, and of course arts, very critical. Our musical traditions, both our rural folk music traditions and our classical music tradition, and our dance traditions, rural dance programs and Bharatanatyam. All of this we are creating the setting here to do this. And this is something that I want to do in 100 areas and as part of Zoho. And I want to learn from your experience doing this all over India. And where you've gone, we want to follow your path. And I'm very impressed by your organization, what you've built in eVidyaloka, and I want to wish all of you the very best. I'm very sorry, due to prayer commitment, I could not make it to the event, but maybe next year or sometime I will be happy to participate. And I want to wish you all the best on this year's RUBARU event, and thank you for listening. Nandri, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Your message that the future of education lies in learning by doing is very apt in today's world. And Zoho is a great testimony in itself for the milestones one can reach as a collective, especially when it comes to bringing our shared vision into fruition. Thank you once again for the insightful words and for being part of RUBARU today. Friends, the academic year 2021 and 22 has been an amazing experience. At eVidyaloka, we embraced this journey wholeheartedly, and the results are before us today. Our journey has been one of creation and innovation, of dreaming high and delivering big. We now bring to you a video of the eVidyaloka journey in 2021-22, along with a message from Mr. Vishwanathan Tyagarajan, Member, Board of Trustees, eVidyaloka. Can we have the video, please?
Welcome to RUBARU 2022. Academic year 21-22 has been a year of great learning and growth for eVidyaloka, an opportunity to innovate so that we can expand our reach and impact. As the children initially stayed back home. We expanded our Learn from Home program as well as the facilitated program through the Android app to 100,000 children. Our Teach Through Television program has also been a great hit. We now have 5 million children watching and learning through these television classes. We are now present in 490 plus villages across 147 districts. 6,000 plus volunteers teach these live classes or doubt clearing sessions or create lessons plans, assessments and worksheets. As we increased our depth of volunteering, we had a great opportunity to help 89 students from Andhra Pradesh tribal welfare schools to clear NEET and JEE. 75 corporates now participate in either volunteering or sponsoring these programs. Overall this year we delivered 25 million plus child learning hours. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our volunteers, partners, corporates and eVidyaloka team who make this happen day in and day out. Thank you all.
11 years of educating rural India digitally, eVidyaloka now has over 610 schools. An accessible online learning opportunity was created through the eVidyaloka Learning app, which offers curated video lessons and worksheets in 6 languages. We have made it possible for children to access our academic content from home as we broadcast our video lessons on local cable TV channels. About 5 million children were reached through the television program across the country. At eVidyaloka, we believe in the holistic development of a student. To bring the best-in-class education to our children, we introduced a number of new programs this year. The Joy of Reading program was shouldered by volunteers who became master trainers. Students in 40 schools across 5 states benefited from this program. Social emotional learning was implemented in 42 schools across 5 states. To enable these programs, we joined hands with various knowledge partners. Volunteer teachers chose to undergo training so we could together provide great value to our beloved children. Over 6,000 volunteers connected with children in this academic year. eVidyaloka has expanded its volunteering opportunities. This year witnessed volunteers teaching, creating lesson plans, creating video lessons, conducting personality development sessions for students, and many more. The NGO partners of eVidyaloka are the grassroots level enablers for all programs. This year, eVidyaloka worked with 45 partners across 11 states, ensuring that our programs reach the last mile. About 200 staff from our partner NGOs attended the personality development and capacity building workshops. Some of our field coordinators and class assistants have gone the extra mile and braved social stigma to ensure children have access to quality education. This year, the National Partner Summit of eVidyaloka was rechristened as Roshni, in memory of an extraordinary class assistant. Roshni 2021 saw participation of over 300 NGOs from across the country. The event included a capacity building session for NGO leaders, which was delivered simultaneously in 6 languages. eVidyaloka played host to several eminent personalities, academicians and industry leaders as part of panel discussions and keynote lectures. With encouragement from our patrons and well-wishers, coupled with the backing of our passionate volunteer teachers alongside a spirited partner ecosystem, we are able to create magic for our children. Each day at eVidyaloka begins and ends with the children. Their keen minds and lively spirit enthuse and amaze us. The National Student Innovation Challenge received 300 submissions this year. NSIC is an online pan-India contest with an aim to nurture the talent of students in classes 6, 7 and 8. Students from rural and urban schools work in teams towards conceiving solutions to meet the United Nations Millennium Development Goals. The Leadership Curriculum program had 105 students participating from 8 states. It is a 3-month program that aims to groom students who display an extra spark in the classroom and are inquisitive about learning more. Students set small targets and work with a mentor to achieve them. The program is concluded with the students presenting in the form of a TED-style talk. Vigyana had 2,475 students from 140 schools across 7 states participating this year. This flagship quizzing event of eVidyaloka was co-created with LTI. Launched in 2020, the event is a dedicated quiz to foster competitive quizzing among the students of rural India. Our journey in the last year is a story of grit and determination. The eVidyaloka children are a driving force for the organization to innovate, to solve, and to reach every desiring learner. eVidyaloka has always been a champion of rural education. Standing testimony to this are awards like Award for Excellence in Supporting Education and Skill at the ASSOCHAM CSR and Sustainability Summit, Kalam Award for Social Impact, Outstanding NGO Exemplar Award 2021 by Rotary Club of Bangalore, Special Award for CSR Innovation in Education Technology 2020, IPE Conference, Polestar Social Impact Award 2019, and many more. At eVidyaloka, we say, once an Evian, always an Evian. This year, we piloted a program for our alumni. 300 alumni across 10 villages of Andhra Pradesh and Jharkhand were tracked with the aim of supporting them for higher education through skill enhancement programs. This is just the beginning of yet another long-term impact programs of eVidyaloka. The year 2021-2022 has been a rewarding one. None of this would have been possible without the support we received from our donors, well-wishers, patrons, partners, and volunteers. A special shout out to the Evians who strive day in and day out to ensure that rural India continues to learn. Together we have reached 5 million. Tomorrow we will reach millions more.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Vishwanathan, for the message. We at eVidyaloka are all poised for the upcoming academic year 2022-23. The wind is behind us and it is full steam ahead for another year of making meaningful impact and bringing smiles on a million more faces across the country. Before we move on, let us share a video of how far can one reach.
There are moments when we don't get mobile signal. What do we do then? We go in search of the signal. Well, Rakesh Mato of Tamna village in the Purlia district of West Bengal wanted to attend a class online. Unfortunately, he didn't have mobile signal while sitting on the floor of his house. He went out looking for mobile signal. When he found signal at one spot, he built his study area right there. Rakesh is an 8th grader at Tamna Junior High School. His favorite subject is English, taught by Amitava Deshmukh sir, who resides in Hyderabad and teaches over the internet. When asked how and why he came up with the idea of the structure, he says, "This is called a machan. I saw one near the pond and I decided to make one. My friends helped me. Our house is low-lying. I don't get signal there. I get good signal here. I can go attend my online classes." Nobody asked him to. Nobody taught him to. He built the structure on his own. He built it to attend the eVidyaloka online classes.
That was truly inspiring to see to what extent a desiring and a desiring learner can go to access education. And at eVidyaloka, it is our continuous effort to ensure that all such desiring learners are provided an opportunity to access online learning. With that, we bring to you another video of yet another of our successful students.
Hello everyone, this is Himanandini from Lakshmipuram village, Tirumur Mandal, Krishna district, Andhra Pradesh. In my life, eVidyaloka played a crucial role. I had studied in MP school Lakshmipuram. When I was in 7th class, eVidyaloka started teaching online classes to the students in our school. They taught us in a very friendly manner. They also provide good coaching for various scholarship examinations for our development. After the completion of 8th class, I had joined in an English medium school. Though I was a Telugu medium student, I stood first in the class only because of the classes of eVidyaloka. Especially Nikita madam and Krupa Subramanian madam supported us very much. I had completed my 10th class in Nagarjuna English medium school, Tiruru, and I had completed my intermediate in Nagarjuna Junior College, Tiruru. I had got 988 marks out of 1000 in intermediate public examinations, and I had also got 1793rd rank in APMC. Currently, I am pursuing BTech first year in Computer Science and Engineering branch in B.R. Siddhartha Engineering College, Vijayawada. After the completion of my intermediate, I had asked eVidyaloka if they would provide me any scholarship. Just by asking one time, they agreed and providing me scholarship for pursuing my graduation. Thank you eVidyaloka and thank you Mallikarjun sir for supporting me very much. In future, I am wanting to become a software developer and I would provide good quality education to the village children who would unable to get good education because of poverty. Thank you eVidyaloka. Thank you for guiding me in my life. Thank you.
Friends, that was the journey of Himanandani, one of our several alumni who have been through the eVidyaloka program. This year, eVidyaloka has embarked on a new mission to track all our alumni and offer them support in terms of mentoring for competitive exams as well as career guidance. Friends, delivering the keynote address today is Mr. Pratyush Kumar Panda, Head of CSR and Sustainability at LTI. Mr. Pratyush Panda is among the pioneers in the CSR and ESG space. He combines a strong training in development processes with a sensitive and empathetic perspective to the social sector. With vast experience in handling large-scale operations, he believes that scale and replicability are key to creating sustainable impact. In his current role as the head of CSR and sustainability at LTI, he is a steering force in realizing the eVidyaloka vision. We welcome you, sir, to RUBARU 2022, and may I request you to kindly deliver the keynote address.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Very good morning and one warm welcome to everyone to RUBARU. For me, it's like a first time coming to this platform. Heard a lot about it when it was, on ground and before COVID also, and during the COVID period also, how the entire program has shifted from, a pure manual processing to a hybrid model and now believing strongly on digitalization process. As you all know that L&T Infotech is also as a company coming out with a lot of tech platforms with based on SOS, based on IoT, to help out at ground zero and especially interior pockets of India. one good thing about the entire programming and our partnership with eVidyaloka is, whenever we have tried to reach out to a wider arena, the underprivileged, ultra poor student across different corners of India, eVidyaloka has came forward very proactively. And this is a rare case. I mean, I must tell you, I have worked with more than 500 such NGOs during my 25 years of career. It is very difficult at times to NGOs to help them to understand and change their pathway as per the requirements because of some kind of, what you call that, the way they do it. And there is nothing wrong in that, but at times, especially when COVID hit and all those kind of disasters, disruption takes place, something what takes forward all of us is our agility, adaptability to the new situation on which this platform has also gone on a big way. A few things I like to bring it here is about our special district, why we should include them in all our development and all projects. We all know that Niti Aayog during last 5-7 years has come out in a very big way. Today, this is the only district, aspirant districts are which are grossly being monitored in different SDI parameters and being reported through SDG goals across globe. The details are available online for each block. Within block, if you go to different talukas also, reports on their indicators are available. So, and these are the district, as far as the district of the district are with higher concentration of ultra poor populations. And there's a small study on HBR online education in India. It said about 8.72 students during COVID could continue their education and if they are going to government run schools. And we all know that who goes to government run schools in India today, it's always the underprivileged and the ultra poor family members. Within them, if only 10% could able to complete their course curriculum online in this COVID, just think of what has happened to remaining 90 plus percent of students. Nobody is talking on those lines. Digital divide was there in our country across the globe, but it has further widened during this present pandemic. And this only way in such a big country with 135-40 crores kind of population, it's humanly impossible to government, to our NGOs or any corporate to reach out to all of them. The last student in the row, practically, physically on ground. The only way is can we express something with respect to our distillation process, and if at all, how we should grow up then. And we have seen that there are different educational platform has been, you must have seen continuous advertisement on your television every day. They only cater to top 2 to 4% of the populations, means well-to-do and people with extra wealth at home can afford on those lines. They are the people only able to afford those education. What about the remaining? Again, it boils down to how can we provide extra reach to them. Second, one of the good practice that government has done during this period is, if you are aware about the BharatNet platforms. So BharatNet is again has reached out to 250,000 gram panchayatis in this country when you are talking to each other. And this is how they uh, provided access to distillation through internet in those centers. And I have personally seen more than 50 such panchayats where the school has started running as a remedial classes at the panchayat itself because they had the access to internet instead, and schools were officially closed during entire this period. So these two things I believe we can include on our regular curriculum. Some text-based solution in the education space and need to come out also. There are a lot of free contents are available online. When you go and talk deeper into Google and start searching for them, student will certainly get confused when teachers and parents are getting confused which content to be taken up, even if it is free, and which is appropriate for our curriculum. And there is no clear-cut answer. We can get it from there. So we can have some take-based solution on education space, which can also help us to get accurate content with respect to the state curriculum. There are available, availability is huge, but boiling down to one single one, which one the students should uh, refer to and go through deeper, is very difficult decision to be taken, even by the teachers and the parents. Forget about the student, and we all can do something on those lines. Coming back to how LTI is working on those lines, few things I must tell you. We are working with recently, again, we have expanded our partnership with a lot of incubation center. Among them, one is IIT Madras. We're working with them to make 5G. It's accessible through BharatNet to different corners of India at a very affordable price. And there are professors, students, and some startups in IIT Madras. They're proudly saying we can do it, and with a better price than 4G cost also. Imagine if that incubation comes out true within a year or two time, 5G will be accessible at a affordable price across this 250,000 gram panchayat at affordable price. And probably that can bring a breakthrough in entire process. And again, simultaneously, we are working on some IoT based solutions at LTI, which can be provided to different tech platform. One of them is to bridge the digital divide across different parts of India. And that's the reason, we have expanded our investment with respect to minimizing digital divide, and also bringing some high-tech solutions which can be used by different our civil society organizations and different corporates, even by the government also. And at the same time, when we're doing both the work in-house on IoT based and in partnership with the IIT Madras, IIT Bombay, IIT Bangalore, all those things are coming out. We are trying to reach out that going ahead in next financial year, can we reach out to 500,000 such students lives through this kind of tech platform, so that even if there is a disruption going ahead, today it is COVID, tomorrow because of climate crisis it might be something else. It is very difficult to envisage today, but at least mentally and professionally we need to prepare ourselves in a way that even if there is a disruption, the education in India for the underprivileged should continue at par or in a better standard of quality. That's the objective at our end. We are going ahead on those lines. And thank you so much, everyone, for the opportunity and inviting me. Really blessed. And I'd like to continue further going ahead, listening to all of you. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir, for your warm and encouraging words. Together, in partnership with LTI, we are confident of making inroads into many more rural schools and add more pins on the eVidyaloka map. Thank you once again for being with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us Ms. Meera Naravane, the wife of General Manoj Mukund Naravane, the Honorable Chief of Army Staff. Ms. Naravane is the president of the Army Wives Welfare Association. She is a teacher with over 25 years of experience, and as head of the AWWA, she has been instrumental in initiating several welfare and rehabilitative programs for the spouses, children, and dependents of Army personnel in India. Ma'am has kindly consented to be the guest of honor today. Welcome, ma'am, to RUBARU 2022. I request you to kindly address the gathering.
Ms. Brinda, Mr. Ravichandran, and all the trustees and the distinguished participants here. A very good morning to all of you. I'm very grateful to eVidyaloka for giving me an opportunity to be with all of you today. As you may know, my organization, the Army Vice Welfare Association, AVA for short, is committed to the welfare of families of soldiers, both serving and retired, as also the families of those who have sacrificed their lives for the nation. What better welfare can there be than to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all? This, as we all know, is the fourth goal as embodied in the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Inclusive education is one of the KRAs of our. We work at sensitizing all stakeholders, parents, teachers, students, and the Army community on gender disparities and play a supportive role in ensuring equal access to education and vocational training for the vulnerable, including children with disabilities. I am both happy and inspired at the same time by all the wonderful work being done by eVidyaloka. I am sure that eVidyaloka is a boon to the children in rural India. The digital solutions that you are providing will go a long way in keeping rural children connected to mainstream education. I must compliment you for also selecting inclusive outlook for sustainable impact as the theme for today's interaction. There are over 250 million children, school-going children enrolled in the education system today. Sustainable growth is possible only if these children learn well and in turn contribute to building a system where there is an equitable access to education as also livelihoods. For this to happen, as the speaker earlier has said, we have to make quality education affordable to all. A vast majority of children in rural areas, I find, are also learning from textbooks that have little content that connects them to their daily experiences. Very often, they speak a dialect which is quite different from the standard language of instruction. We need urgently to look at solutions, textbooks, lesson plans, and also to train teachers to create meaningful experiences for these children. An educated and involved citizenry is the cornerstone of sustainable development. It really warms my heart to know that eVidyaloka is drawing on a large volunteer base to deliver its programs. Most of what we do in AVA is also through a team of dedicated volunteers drawn from our own fraternity. Teacher training in the current pandemic-driven environment is a fundamental prerequisite to sustained development. I will use this platform to beseech government agencies, individuals, and corporate donors not to shy away from investing in teacher training. It may not look as tangible, like maybe donating for infrastructure or whatever, but in the long run, it's teacher training that is going to make the system sustainable as well as robust. That is my thinking on this. I compliment eVidyaloka for the yeoman service that all of you are providing. I'm sure your endeavors will bear fruit across the length and breadth of the country. I assure you also that AVA will always stand in support of your vision and your efforts. Thank you once again for having me here, and it's been a pleasure to listen to some of your speakers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. We are proud to learn more about the inspiring work taken up by AWWA. I'm also happy to share that our work has been a big part of eVidyaloka, with several spouses of Army personnel who are volunteering to teach our students.
I'm really pleased to hear that. I didn't, know that you had so many, but I'm really pleased to know that some of our fraternity is joining up with you all. I'm sure it'll be a learning for them as well.
True, ma'am. On behalf of the entire eVidyaloka family, I thank you for sparing your valuable time to be with us today. Thank you once again.
I would actually like to listen to more of your speakers, but unfortunately I'm traveling and just about to leave. So I will not be able to continue to be on this webinar. But thank you so much for having me, and Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, ma'am. Friends, education is a basic human right, and undeniably it is the foundation for a more just society. In a country as rich and diverse as ours, the only way to deliver quality education is by making it inclusive and equitable. It is now time for some stimulating discussion as eVidyaloka brings to you a roundtable discussion on the theme of inclusive education 2022 and beyond. On this panel, we have Ms. Brinda, CEO of eVidyaloka Trust, Ms. Pooja Marwaha, CEO of CRY, that is Child Rights and You, Mr. Dimant Parekh, founder of The Better India, and Mr. Ramji Raghavan, founder chairperson of Agastya International Foundation. Moderating the discussion will be Ms. Manisha Natarajan, anchor and editor at NDTV and advisor at India Sotheby's International Realty. I extend a warm welcome to all the panelists, and I request Ms. Manisha Natarajan to kindly take over. I would request you to kindly unmute, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Can everyone hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I caught some of the conversation at the fag end, and like every conversation on inclusive education, every bit is so precious. So let me start by welcoming everyone to this inclusive education conversation. And I thank eVidyaloka for giving me this opportunity to interact with India's leading minds in the space of children's education, development, growth, and of course, also a platform which does very important stories. So let me dive straight in and introduce you to the panelists. Ramji Raghavan, he's the founder and chairperson of Agastya International Foundation and a member of the Central Advisory Board of Education, Government of India. Now, Agastya Foundation does some path-breaking work in taking science learning to children in rural India, and they're present in 27 states. We also have with us, has Pooja joined us? Yes, Pooja Marwa, CEO of Child Rights and You, or CRY. No one better than Pooja to really give us a holistic understanding of how inclusive education cannot stand by itself. It's linked to so many other social parameters, health, education, nutrition. All of them are so interconnected. And we do know that CRY's work is motivated by a very simple philosophy that children should be at the heart of all human development work. We also have with us a man who inspires us journalists to look at the world as a glass half full rather than half empty. Dimant Parekh, founder of The Better India. His platform's positive stories of change have given voice to hundreds of grassroots level social entrepreneurs and individuals, creating a much needed ripple effect of change and truly the better India. Brinda Purna, she's the CEO of eVidyaloka. I'm sure all of you know her. She's a tireless warrior of inclusive education and at the helm of this non-profit organization. Now, eVidyaloka, we all know, spotted the shortage of quality teachers for rural India way back in 2010-11 and started delivering quality learning to these children via digital mediums. And this was before COVID changed the world and took education online by force and necessity. So thank you everyone for giving me the time. So I'll request that this be an interactive dialogue. So two things, don't wait for me to ask a question. Please feel free to add to what another speaker is saying if you've got a thought or a point to add. If you raise your hand, I will know that you want to jump in and I will make sure I make space for that. The other thing is that let's keep our answers concise so that we can cover everything that's important and have a lot of takeaways for all our audience, which I'm sure are involved in delivering quality education and making it more inclusive. So let me start with the gentleman who is right now at the helm of and working with the government to make education possible for all. Ramji, never in the history of the world have we had the challenge of educating 250 million. Look at that number. It is staggering. educate 250 million children at the same time. And India has that challenge to do that. I think, can you just take us through the, your core philosophy with which you work at Agastya Foundation, when you look at that term inclusive, and when you're sitting with everybody else on the panel of the national education policy, what is inclusive education? Let's set the foundation there.
Sure, thank you. I hope you can see this.
Yes, I can.
It's called a tippy top. Now it rests on its bottom when you keep it on a surface because that's where its weight is. But the funny thing is when you spin it, suddenly it tips over and begins to spin on its stem. Okay, it's very counterintuitive. And when you see something like that happen, you go, ah. In other words, your mind is stimulated, your curiosity is awakened. And then you wonder, why did that happen or how did that happen? And if you do find out, and it's by no means a simple thing, you experience the famous aha effect. And in the process of doing it, you play a lot with it. I carry it wherever I go. It's a lot of fun. You have a lot of fun, joy of learning, what we call the ha-ha effect. So what we have learned is that for true inclusive education to be of value and potentially transformative, you need three key elements. One is ah, which is curiosity, sparking curiosity. The second is aha, which is creativity, the whole process of experimenting, discovering, controlled inquiry, making connections, and so on. And ha-ha, which is joyful learning. Now, if you ask yourself the question, how much of the education system actually has this, you will find very little. There's very little ah. If there is, it's often very negative. There's hardly any aha. It's always someone else's aha that you're memorizing and writing answers to questions and tests. And of course, there's very little ha-ha. So if you can inject this spirit into the education system, then I think it becomes very inclusive because you're providing access. This costs all of 10 rupees. And I tell you, you can spend days and months and weeks, and the learning you'll get out of this will far exceed years of lectures in a classroom. In fact, there's a picture on the internet of Niels Bohr and Wolfgang Pauli, Nobel laureates, playing with the tippy top and trying to figure out its mathematics and physics. So very affordable. So like this, there are thousands of ways in which you can increase access to learning. But it's not just access. You must keep children engaged. For that, it has to be fun. It has to be reasonably challenging. We're all born curious. That's the good news. The bad news is the education system suppresses curiosity. So that has to stop. I think if we did that, then we will be providing quality education to the masses. Then you're going to have a lot of takers, and then education becomes of value. You can do this physically, hands-on, and now with technology, you can do virtual labs and all the rest of it. That might take a little longer because not everyone has access, but there are ways, of doing it. We created in COVID this book, which it tries to put in the form of a book called ActiLearn, what you can do with a tippy top using paper, sitting at home. So there are ways of skinning the cat that you might not have thought of, that COVID has forced us and many other people to explore. I hope I've partly answered your question.
Absolutely, but Mr. Raghavan, we are struggling with that aha moment or the way of learning in India's best of schools, right? Even they've not transformed. So actually, perhaps the way Agastya Foundation is revolutionizing it from bottom up and ground up could be the way to go. I'll come back to that in just a little bit. Let me bring in Pooja Marwa now. Pooja, you've always maintained that in fact, something that really stood out of the interviews that I've watched of yours during COVID, we are coming out of a life-altering pandemic, is that, we talk about education, and all of us, all that we thought was that during COVID, children from less privileged backgrounds missed out on 2 years of learning and they've been pushed behind. But your conversation is the only one which actually woke me up to the fact that, look, when they lost a safe space like school, it was life altering for them in a very, very different way. They went back to child labor. Some of them got pushed back, or some of them got pushed to early marriage. I mean, something that hadn't even crossed my mind. So take us through how education and inclusive education cannot stand on its own. I mean, that's what I'm getting from what I've read about you.
Wonderful, Manisha. It's so heartening to know that the message is going through. I think the key learning that I've had and we've had at CRY from our work is that school, for the most marginalized children, the children that, if we talk about inclusive education, to me, it is the last child, right? It is the child who's handicapped, the child who is not in school because of gender, the child who doesn't have access to school because she lives in that last village in Manipur with just, there may be just 4 or 5 kids in that village. So it's not practical to have a school, for example. But for them, school is so much more than just learning. It is a place of protection. It is a place of safety. It is a source of nutrition for so many of our children, thanks to the wonderful midday meal scheme. And also for many, many families, the fact that a child is happy and learning in school, and therefore that is where quality of learning becomes a factor, right? Keeps that child away from the family, either, using them as a resource for labor, or, getting worried and saying, oh, might as well, pull the child out of school and put her, get her married or whatever. Anyway, kuch nahi seekh rahi hai. So I think that key message, I think in COVID times, has come through so starkly. Our data's just from our operational areas, we work in about 18 to 19 states, and we work with around, 3.5 lakh to 4 lakh children, is that just our own data, and we haven't had a chance, we are now beginning to study the impact really and what are the real numbers. But the data seems to suggest that more and more children have been pushed into marriage, labor, and a piece that I think again is escaping a lot of our attention is more violence, more home-based violence and abuse. And the good thing that's happened in the pandemic, I think, is that for most of us working with children and on education, we have realized we are going to have to find ways to reach their homes, to reach their parents. Most people I talk to have now started looking at, oh my God, we'll have to train parents. And for example, joyful learning for 0 to 6-year-olds. So I think it's a funny part of me that feels happy that child organizations are, or education-based organizations have to recognize and acknowledge the reality of communities and parents and the huge role that they play and should play, and that there is only so much that you can get to the children without them. So yeah, it's I think a good time for us to really understand and ensure that our schools become places of joyful learning and of safety, and a place where children find what all studies across the world tell us, right? An underprivileged child only needs one concerned, loving adult somewhere in their ecosystem, whether through the school, whether through in any other way. And yeah, that's a big thing. And you took me there, but I also, when you said inclusion, just yesterday I was looking at a cartoon somebody sent me, and I think it visualizes inclusion in the best possible way. You know, you have a boy, you have a fence, right? Everybody's looking over the fence. You have a boy, you have a little girl, much shorter, and you have a child at almost knee level because he's in a wheelchair. And the only way to provide inclusion is that the little girl gets a stool, the boy gets taken off the stool, and the wheelchair child gets a ramp. And I think that to me is the heart of inclusion. We have to recognize inequities of access. We have to stop saying this is all part of history, you know, it doesn't exist, inequity doesn't exist, it exists. And ensuring equitable access for all our children is what is so critical for us. I mean, some of the numbers on internet, and I'm sure Britta knows this way better than I do, the numbers on internet access for our children are scary. The phone access for young girls are scary numbers. You know, we are seeing only 27% in rural access to a family device, where I've had young girls talk to me about how they get up at 4 in the morning because the only time they get the phone for their classes was 4 to 5. So, you know, I think there are a lot of issues around equity as well that have got really exacerbated during the pandemic.
Thank you, Pooja, for, you know, taking us through the experiences. I mean, like I rightly said, there's so many aspects which don't even make it into mainline media, and therefore we miss them completely. Brinda, I'll bring you in next. You know, eVidyaloka, in fact, the pandemic, like she said, the access to digital, we feel there's a digital revolution going on, and therefore it should become so much easier to deliver education. But I remember I tried volunteering with eVidyaloka for 6 months, and of course couldn't continue with it because of my other commitments. But even at that point of time, this is 2015-16 we are talking about, you know, the patchiness of the internet itself used to make it so difficult. What has changed since then? Because, you know, eVidyaloka has been doing digital delivery of quality education. Like Pooja said, one person, one caring adult is all that a child needs. And you have been bringing that one caring adult to rural India and rural education, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Manisha, for asking that. And it's heartening, right? What COVID has done really to us and to the whole world is to kind of push forward the digital acceptance. That has been the key, and what we were doing from 2011 somehow now seems a norm, with everybody kind of adopting it as a way of reaching out to the children, only because we couldn't kind of do that during the time when the children couldn't come to school, right? So that's really the highlight. But I agree with you that there have been times during our own classes, Manisha, the internet has been patchy, but we've made sure that we equip the school with better infrastructure just to make sure that the experience is seamless, both for the volunteers and for the children, because that's how the learning would continue and the children would want to come back to school, especially. And since this is the best part of the school is what they say, most of them, the children who speak to us. But what has also been good during the pandemic is about us adopting the multi ways of reaching out to the children. Yes, if the children can't come to school, and if the children just have about one gadget at home, like the way Pooja mentioned, we said, hey, look, we'll kind of reach out through the television. We made sure that we worked with an aggregator organization. We gave them our videos. We made sure that they were broadcasted at a particular time on schedule. So the whole village would get to benefit from our intent of reaching out to the children and educating them. So why not, right? So this year, in fact, we've educated about 50 lakh children during this whole different modes of us reaching out. Do we do television? Yes, we do. Do we have an app which itself has been quite interesting in the way we run facilitated classes by the community leaders engaging the children? Yes, we do that. Do we have workbooks and worksheets just so that the child understands that just not one, but there are multi modes of them accessing and continue to study? We do that as well, right? So are we happy for us to do all that we do? Yes. Is the child at the center of this whole thing? that is the way to go. And more strength, more effort from our end will only mean a more happy, educated child. That's the way I see this, Manisha.
Interesting. Okay, Dimant, bringing you in now to, so you heard everybody who's working on ground to make education inclusive and other social parameters and development. On the Better India, do you have stories to share? Again, I'm going to go back to the fact that curious learning, development growth, one individual can make is all that it takes to change a child's life. Share with us in terms of entrepreneurship, which is happening in the inclusive education space.
Yeah, thanks, Manisha. Of course, at the Better India, we kind of keep talking about a lot of individuals who've gone and made a difference in this space. But just before I kind of get into that, and these are truly inspiring stories, right? However, I'm still of a firm belief that education cannot be inclusive or truly transformational until we address the socio-economic conditions of society. No matter what, it is not about lack of curiosity. It is not about lack of resources of teaching aids. It's not about designing the best curriculum, which is front and center in the world. India as a country has a lot more to cover at the grassroots level of just pure cultural, social, economic challenges. Okay. I know you were kind of expecting more of the inspiring stories from me, but this is a topic which is very close to my heart. I've been working closely on the ground in different capacities, right from having taught in government schools for almost a couple of academic years to we now run a scholarship where we kind of get children from the 7th to 10th grade back to school if they're not able to kind of afford it. And we really kind of, one of the things that we did in last year, we moved to a tier 2 town in India. And we were kind of really working, while working on the Better India, we actually started teaching some of the kids in the neighborhood, whose parents were basically domestic help, right? And here's a 9th grade student who really, really curious, right? I have a 7th grade student son. My son is 12 years old, and this girl is 14 years old. Very curious to learn. She actually just came up to me and said, "Could you teach me maths and physics and stuff?" And we started teaching her. And you realize that while the drive is there, the education is largely governed by the fact that she's the daughter of a single parent. The single parent is working from morning 7 till night 10 in a household, cleaning up their stuff. So there's absolutely no guidance, no mentorship. Sure, goes to a private affordable school, not a government school. So that part is checked. Has these ICSE textbooks and all of that stuff. But when we sat down and started teaching, the 9th subjects, I had to go rewind and go back to 8th. I had to teach those things. Then when I started doing that, I realized that I had to go all the way back to 4th grade and figure out how to do fractional additions before I came back all the way here to do quadratic equations. And this was not just her. So and then we had a larger session with a larger crowd of her peers and stuff like that. And you realize that it's not really a fault of theirs. That there is no guidance at home. The teacher can only be there for 40-50 kids. Let's say, right, 250 million kids in school, 130 plus million are in government schools, 120 million are in private schools, but 80% of that 120 million is in your private affordable schools, which, if you look at it, it's extremely diffused focus on a child. At home, there's absolutely no focus. You have to look at the demographic, which kind of goes to a private affordable school, right? It's everyone here on the panel, of course, we've kind of had access to reasonably good education, largely due to an ovarian lottery, right? The point is, how do you eliminate the chances of an ovarian lottery affecting people's lives? And that, I think, is a very, very large problem which has to be solved at a state level. That the whole socio-economic condition cannot be addressed, by one or two initiatives. While of course that's needed, and like I said, for that one child, that one initiative is a life-changing thing. But if I have to step back and say what the largest scale of problems are, I really think there's a bigger challenge over here. I think the midday meal, for instance, is a great initiative to at least start addressing the problem of dropout rates because you're able to provide nutrition and all of that. Having said that, coming back to a point where we've seen numerous stories of people kind of bringing in inclusive education, the one really, really kind of stood out for me was this group of folks in Bombay, in Mumbai, who picked up a discarded shipping container and put it under a traffic signal where the beggars kids were just hanging around, loitering around. They call it Signal Shala. You guys should look it up. And all the kids of the beggars there started just sitting there, right? And these guys started teaching. And now it's transformed into 6 such branches, all run out of shipping containers, makeshift shipping containers under the flyovers, and are truly transforming the kids. You should see the aspirations of these kids. It's incredible. There's another very, very inspiring story for me personally. Is that of Uma Venkatachalam. She is in Tamil Nadu. She and her husband one day saw the sight of beggars in her town, and she said, "Why should this be the case, right?" And she's actually brought in all the orphans and beggars, and she's set up this massive academy. Today, students of that academy have made it to MIT, have made it to the IITs, are aerospace engineers. Truly transformational, done by just a couple, Uma Venkatachalam and her husband. You should totally look her up. So these are what really kind of gives me hope that we can get there. If 2 people can do it, imagine what the state can do, right? But I strongly believe that the state needs to kind of do this, and I think at a very, very core socioeconomic level.
Ramji, talking about the state, then we have to come to you. I mean, yes, like I said, 250 million people, and perhaps more than 50% belonging to a socioeconomic background where the parent does not even have the basic education or the time to guide the child or support the child at home. Local dialect, I mean, that is something that we've faced continuously at a small school that we try and run in Bundelkhand for children in the age groups of 5 to 12 and 13, just basic education. We couldn't deliver simply because, even Hindi is difficult for them to understand. They like the Bundelkhandi language, and the teachers there, when we try to shoot videos with them, they just don't know how to deal with that medium. So many challenges, but that's not the point. The question that I would like you to probably address is, it is not a small problem. We are also many countries in India, many dialects in India. Socioeconomic variety is huge in terms of where people are on the economic ladder. What are the few things that the state can do to change this? I mean, even America it's such a developed country, and it's not being able to solve this problem. If you look at Bill and Melinda Gates' notes, the one area where they say that we have really not succeeded is education in the inner America, which is economically backward.
Look, development. I'm a student of development economics in one of my previous avatars. Development is a long-term process, and it's gradual. There may be some exceptions like China and Japan and some smaller countries. But by and large, it's taken a long time, and it's been gradual. And a number of things have to come together, right? It's not just one thing. Now, when we started Agastya, I did a lot of brainstorming with a gentleman who used to be the chairman of the Atomic Energy Commission. And the question was, and this is 23 years ago, why are we in the situation that we are in? Nehru talked about the importance of the scientific temper, scientific with a small s, which is really how to think, not what to think, how to learn, not what to learn, as being the most empowering skill that a human being can have. So what Dr. Iyengar said is, as a nation, this disseminating the scientific temper stayed with just very small groups, okay? We did not succeed in disseminating it to the masses of India. So, in other words, he said there's a complete absence of what he called cause-effect thinking. We don't understand how to figure out the cause of a problem and therefore how to find a solution. So whether you hand it over to the state or anybody else, there are lots of people, even educated people, who are not able to understand how to find the cause of a problem and how to solve it, let alone act upon it. So cause-effect thinking is not something unlike curiosity that you're born with. It is something that needs to be nurtured. And a lot of the Western countries and Japan and so on, a century or more ago, understood the importance of infusing cause-effect thinking into education. Okay, which we didn't, although we talked about it. Now, unless that is done, you're going to find that the products that come out, whether they are farmers or whether they are healthcare people or whether they are policymakers, constantly make the same mistakes. Okay, so you never find solutions. Now you can say this is a state challenge. We've been saying this for decades. The government must do it. The government must act if you want to have something done at scale. That's true. That is true. And yet we are stuck in that because there are other factors that go into it. If you're somebody with a certain amount of power and ability to influence and do things, you know, there's a very good book called The Compass to Fulfillment, where the author, famous Japanese entrepreneur, says, success is a factor of three things: talent, skill, and attitude or character. And he was bemoaning the fact that in Japan, at the highest levels, you have talent and skill, but not character. Now, on talent and skill, you can be rated on a scale of 0 to 100. Okay? But on character, it goes from -100 to +100. So if you get -1 on character and you have 80 in skill and 80 in talent, you're still in -6,400 negative territory. So I don't want to get into a moralistic preaching kind of thing. In the old days, we would make fun of some ministers. Yeah, he can't speak English. He hasn't gone to a good university and so on. Today, in the last 20 years, you've had people in government who've been to all the Ivy League universities. The question is the third element, because if you want to get something done, you have to have an objective view of things. You have to have some empathy. Then even if your solution isn't perfect, after all, there are hundreds of approaches to solving a problem. You will at least figure out and do something, and it will start to make some difference. And then you learn through that process. So I don't want to, sound cynical, because I believe there are ways in which, despite this inertia in the system and vested interests and so on and so forth, which a lot of countries have. I'm not saying it's just India. It's not just India. There are solutions that can work if they are given a chance to work. I believe the new national education policy, you can say, why didn't this happen 30, 50 years ago? But forget that, it's happened. Marks a very big shift in thinking, at least, from what to learn to how to learn, what to think to how to think, and all the things that we've been talking about. Now, the acid test will be in implementation and commitment. And here, a lot of NGOs, I have been recommending to the government, look, if you want to solve a problem, seek a solution. In other words, find out if somebody has solved this problem, even if it's not at scale. And somebody might have solved that problem. And go and find out what is it, the secret sauce of that, and see if you can scale it. That's all we need to do. Many people have solved problems, not at scale, but they've solved them. Find the solution that they've got and just scale it with some tweaking and adjustments. You don't have to be a great, an Einstein to figure out the solution to a lot of these problems. So there is a lot of hope, but it's not just hope. We have to have the will to act. This is what I told Sam Petroda in 2008, the National Knowledge Commission. He went around the table, is there any hope? A lot of people, educated people, put their hands up and said, I don't think there's hope. Why? Well, we've had so many commissions, so many recommendations. How come none of this has happened? So I put my hand up and said, look, hope is something we can all hope. Okay, it's cheap. The question is, do we have the will to act? That's it.
Well, let me bring in Brinda then. Brinda, eVidyaloka is delivering a part of what the National Education Policy actually has stated. I mean, very interestingly, you've tried to match volunteers in the language that they are comfortable with the village and the language, local dialects, right?
Yeah.
The local language. And I think that's one aspect which stood out for me in the National Education Policy, which has just been documented, which has just been released, that, till grade 5th, we are going to have education in the mother tongue, right? So give us some examples, exactly what Ramji said, that, maybe you've done it, but it can easily be scaled up.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for asking this question. The volunteers really have been assets as far as the eVidyaloka movement, as I call it, right? So we identify them where they have the passion and skills. Of course, we can onboard them on, we can train them on. So all these volunteers, we have about 6,000 volunteers, Manisha, as we speak, and each one of them teach children in the times which is convenient to the child. It can be an online mode, which we are teaching the way we are talking, or it can be offline sessions. The volunteers are also helping create content for the children. So are we engaging the child, teaching the child in the language that it is so familiar with? The answer is yes. By that, the child continues to stay invested in learning. It is not something which is alien to the child. So eVidyaloka, along with our model of delivering an online-based education and thereby reaching out to the children and through the help of volunteers in the regional local language, I think has been a great success. It's a nice concoction, which I'd be happy for smaller eVidyalokas really to come up, and we'll be happy to support and mentor them, all for the cause of an educated child.
Mm-hmm. Pooja, what are your views in the follow-up to what Ramji has said, that look, it's really the will to act. And at the end of it, we can create a lot of skills, but there's so much to grapple with. And Hemant raised the fact that you also grapple with, which is the social economic milieu of the families of children which are getting educated. But let's hope. I mean, where do you see the biggest hope when it comes to education, and how do you think we can go forward?
I think actually I'm going back to what Hemant says, and Ranji was saying, yes, as organizations who are looking at not, and should be looking at, not the my 300,000 children, your 10,000 children, but actually looking at the population of the country, our country currently under 18 is 3.3 million, 333 million, right? So the solutions have to, obviously, to be inclusive, would have to be at scale, and the only way to provide scale equitably is through the state. And to me, for example, if I looked at the Right to Education Act, yeah, at one go, we were able to get yeah, at one go, we were able to, I mean, I look at the number of schools that opened at village level because of the simple, caveat that the school has to be within 1 to 3 kilometers. The access to education went up phenomenally. So as a country, And it doesn't take much, is my point, right? You need will and you need to put resources. Put money where your mouth is. You write an NEP, put down the implementation plan and where the budgetary resources are going to be allocated. Because one of the things that we've seen, for example, is you can pass a National Right to Education Act, but remember, education is a concurrent subject. The states have to come on board with their resources and their will as well. So what will really work is for both. I mean, we've seen it in Delhi. I mean, to me, the example of the government of Delhi and what they've done with education is the government schools is an example of, you know, it's something that swims against this tide of hopelessness that government schools are useless. You know, why should education be free? The fact is that of those 250,000 children we've been talking about, 50 to 60% need free education, because otherwise the minute a livelihood issue happens, you know, livelihood is affected in some way of the family, whether it is a pandemic or it is a crop failure or it is a disaster. Private schools is not something anybody will be able to afford, right? So I think having the will and the only thing that can do this at scale is education. Within that, do we have a long way to go on the quality of education? Yes. My big worry is that, you know, what I see is all of us went to privileged schools. No one taught me to question either. I was in fact one of the bad infant terribles of my class because I asked questions, right? And this, and I saw it happening to my own daughter. So many years later, she asked too many questions. So as a society, we are ageist. We respect age, we disrespect young people. And that is a problem. Now, how are we going to sort that out at a fundamental level? I mean, I keep thinking for all of us, no, in the NGO sector, we say, look, what do we keep doing? We keep jumping into the river and saving people, but not questioning why is the bridge breaking in the first place? No? Why are so many people in the darn water? So I think some of the solutions, to me, I'm very clear that it has to be a state solution, because simply if you look at the alternatives could be civil society run organizations, it could be private organizations, right? Which private school is going to go to those last 4 kids in Bastar, where there are only 4 kids? There is no profit to be had. They're not going to go. The only way you can deliver it is through a right. And that is something that we've arrived at least through our work, where, you know, we spent years, as I said, putting band-aids and then realizing, oh my gosh, we're going to have to figure out how to build a stronger wall. The band-aids will they'll just be more and more and more cracks.
No, I think you really raised a very important point. I mean, NGOs, yes, civil society, yes, but state does have to lead in education. And I mean, I am living in Delhi, so I can tell you that our cook actually had her elder 2 being educated at that cheap private school where she would struggle to meet their fees. And then for a 3rd child, she moved her back to a government school, Delhi government schools. There's so much focus of the state here on just getting one thing right. And that's what I feel that, you know, sometimes if you just take these 2 or 3, I know that health is huge by itself, education is huge by itself, but, you know, if you just, I think for the Delhi government, education has become so paramount. I think we're seeing on ground a big change on that front as well. Dhimant, final concluding words from you. I mean, you've already shared your thoughts, but you've heard all the other speakers. I'm sure you've looked at the new education policy. Anything else that you'd like to add which could help making education inclusive? Though I must say, like Mr. Raghavan said, I mean, I am surprised at the policy at least recognizing all the areas of deficit in our education system. This is the first time that I've seen it. In all the past education policies, I think this has been by far the one which recognizes the gaps the best.
So Absolutely. And I think what Mr. Ramji kind of mentioned, right? Those three things, luck, sorry, it was talent, skill, and the attitude, right? Or the character, right? And I think that's just so spot on. I just want to add one more layer to that, and that is access. I just think that access is so critical because the access doesn't come in even if you are the most curious child, you are the most kind of talented child, you don't get the opportunity, right? So I think the access part kind of becomes important. I just feel like the NEP is fantastic. I think I would have loved to be a part of that schooling system if I were to restart the whole thing all over again. I think it's just fantastic. I think the way they're kind of going about it. I just have this sort of a and I kind of derive this from economics, right? I mean, you have these two schools of thought. You have the Adam Smith school of thought that it takes time. Markets will eventually sort of optimize themselves, and there will be efficiency eventually. And then there's the Keynes model, right, where we just say that in the long run we're all dead. So I think there has to be an undercurrent of building out the longer term policy, which is what the NEP is, and I think the implementation will take a while. And by nature of the beast, right, it is a large undertaking. But while that happens, while that thing kind of matures, we cannot have 8-10 generations just kind of wither away. So I also think that while that whole policy kind of gets implemented, I really think there's an urgent need for a sort of a more modular learning curriculum, which sets these kids up at least for the real world, if not for an academic world, right? Because today we personalize education based on people's learning abilities. That's become a big thing. And especially you go to private schools, you will see every child is kind of, has its own pace and all of that. The fact is that for the larger population, education has to be customized based on the economic conditions that they come from. And it's, because if you want to make sure that everyone kind of gets something out of the whole system, right? There should be modules like basic finance. How do you manage money? How do you manage health? How do you manage basic math? And how do you set these people up for at least an ability to enter the economy, the job economy, and all of that? Those smaller interventions are also needed while we are building out the larger sort of thing, because the larger one will take time. And I think in the meanwhile, we can't afford to see these kids kind of just not be a part of that, big outcome that we want. So that's really this thing. I think we need to have a two-pronged approach to get things going.
Go ahead, Mr. Raghavan.
Yeah, so to Dhiman's point, I agree. It's like you're saying, I'm going to find a solution to children going hungry, and it takes years. And meanwhile, millions of children have gone hungry and their brains have been stunted and all that, right? So you can't have that. Now, Lenin, and I'm not a communist, although when I was young, I came close to becoming one. Lenin famously
Didn't
said,
we all?
Lenin famously said that greatness has to do with the ability to compress the column of history. Okay? And I've always thought that people who are in a position of perhaps attaining greatness at the highest levels need to ponder over this, compressing the column of history. Ataturk did it in Turkey when he said that he wanted to change the script. His education minister said, that's a very ambitious goal, Mr. Ataturk. Give me 5 years and I'll work on it to de-Arabize the script. And Ataturk said, I don't think you're hearing me. I want it done in 3 weeks. Okay. Now it was done because he took a hands-on role and because people trusted him and had a lot of faith in him. So all those are preconditions. But our capacity as a society to either led by somebody at the top or together, if we can find ways of compressing the column of history, as opposed to sometimes deliberately widening the column of history, then I think we will see some change. And even each of us in our own small way, if we can compress the column of history in what we're doing without creating problems, I think that will make a huge impact.
I couldn't have done a better wrap out of this discussion. I think that's a fantastic wrap out, that whether you're an individual or the state, I mean, let's all work towards compressing the column of history when it comes to inclusive education. And I think the pandemic has given us or forced us into so many different ways. Many people have thought out of the box, many NGOs have thought out of the box on how to deliver education. Digital has made a lot of it possible to deliver in a different way. And I just, let's live in hope with each one trying to do our bit. And all the very best to every one of you who is really working on ground to deliver some level of quality education. Dhimant, please keep bringing us really inspiring stories. I just love the Better India. I cannot tell you how much I enjoy reading it. And like I said at the opening, that it really has taught me as a journalist to look at life as half full always. So thank you very much, Brinda and the eVidyaloka team, Akshay, for giving me this opportunity. Unless somebody else has anything else to add, can we conclude here?
Can I just conclude?
Yes, of course.
Just in line with what we're talking about today is that, you know, every last child is really what we should be focused on. Because, you know, the child is today. If we don't solve for her tomorrow, she's gone. So I think just if as a society, that's what we believe, then that's what will take us through.
Wonderful thought. I mean, we know it. It's just that we don't action it enough. Over to you, Akshay.
Thank you, ma'am. It is truly the need of the hour to address all forms of exclusion and marginalization, disparities in access and participation, as well as in the learning processes and outcomes. And as the panel rightly brought out, inclusive education is not merely accommodating the differing requirements and identities of individual students, but it is also a commitment to removing the barriers that impede the very possibility of inclusion. And this can only be achieved with an all-encompassing transformation in culture, policy, and practice in all learning environments. Once again, we thank all the panelists for sharing their valuable thoughts in this direction. And thank you so much for joining us today as part of RUBARU 2022. Yukti yuktam pragrhaniyat baladapi vichakshanaha ravera vishayam vastu kimna deepah prakashayet. This Sanskrit verse from the Subhashita Ratna asks us, doesn't a small night lamp light up things that even the sun cannot? Similarly, it encourages grown-ups to seek knowledge continuously and accept wisdom, even if it comes from a child. In this RUBARU, we bring to you the various accomplishments of our students. For our young and bright minds, it has been an year of pushing their limits despite the challenging circumstances. We now have the videos on our flagship event, the National Student Innovation Challenge, the Leadership Curriculum Program, and the Vijnana Quiz. Can we have the videos, please?
National Student Innovation Challenge nurtures talent and leadership for the grade 6, 7, 8 students across India. NSIC this year has been an extremely wonderful experience. This year, we have had 300 students from 8 states who registered with us for the program around the month of August last year. This consisted of children from both rural and urban schools. The children worked on various problem statements from UN SDG goals along with our mentors over the course of 3 to 4 months.
Eliminating poverty, battling inequality, paralyzing global warming. These are a few goals which almost every nation today is battling towards and trying to find a solution at the bureaucratic level. This is essential partnership of goals that our children at the age of 12, 13 and 14 are trying to figure a solution for. The mentors have done an incredible job of finding out what is it that these children can excel in and tapping them in that particular point and bringing out the best from them.
Very often we come across problems in our day-to-day life and we are conditioned to kind of accept it and live with it. NSIC is trying to change this mindset in children by giving them problem statements and asking them to come up with solutions.
We researched through Google and Play Store to find out such useful applications. We downloaded 10 such apps. We finalized 4 best apps to be taken to the households in our village. The 4 applications were about paddy crop, banana crop, farmers and ration cards. We also created a screen recording videos of the 4 apps with narration in Tamil. அதில் பயிர் தேர்ந்தெடு அப்படின்னு இருக்கும். அதை கிளிக் பண்ணிடுங்க. அதை கிளிக் பண்ணிங்கன்னா உங்களுக்கு ஒரு வாய்ஸ் கேட்கும். அடுத்த ஒரு வாரத்துக்கு மழை பெய்யுமா இல்லையான்ட்டு, இன்னைக்கும் மழை பெய்யுமா இல்லையான்ட்டு வாய்ஸ் கேட்கும்.
With so much of efforts, so much of creativity, so much of innovation, some other people doing so much of charts, there are other people doing models. Many other people actually don't go to the library. Sometimes they even go to the panchayat and they have a word with all these authorities.
A wonderful initiative to educate the rural and the urban children. When I watched the videos of these children, the message what I took was they are so creative, innovative, in spite of the language barrier, in spite of the lack of technology. With what they had, they brought out solutions for the problems. I heartily congratulate the mentors who were behind the screen, who made them do all these projects so beautiful.
By December 2021, we received 90 solutions, from which 40 solutions were shortlisted. We also had few interns who worked with us this season with lot of involvement. They tried to make sure that mentors and children stayed connected throughout the period of this program.
This year I was given the opportunity to volunteer as an intern for eVidyaloka's NSIC challenge. This is actually the first time that I took part in this challenge, and it's been a very interesting and a very insightful journey. I really loved interacting with my mentors on a weekly basis. I really loved helping them out. And I'm also very grateful to have been a part of such a project where I could help the kids learn a lot. And I'm pretty sure the interns and the mentors as well have learned a lot and benefited a lot from this project.
Firstly, to talk about how it has affected me individually, I would say that it has certainly helped develop my communication skills, my leadership skills, my managerial skills, and the ability to deal with every conflict faced by the teams with an open mind, however small or big the issue may be. One important takeaway that I have from this program is the presentation, quality of the presentation, and the amount of effort put during these initiatives, right? If I may quote Swami Vivekananda, the very essence of education is the concentration of mind, not the collection of facts.
This magic would not have been possible but for the extraordinary efforts put in by the center assistants, the state coordinators who have been bridging the gap between the mentors and the children, our content team who have devised some wonderful problem statements for the children to work on, our volunteer acquisition team who have been supplying us with a lot of these volunteers. So I think each and every one of these team members are an integral part of NSIC.
The participating children had very enjoyable learning experience, just like every year. They were full of ideas and surprises, just waiting for an opportunity to display their talents.
2 sets of children, different sets of children from 2 different states with completely different cultural background, speaking different languages, are getting together in NSIC to put together and exchange their thoughts about a common problem and finding out what is it that they can do, not just for as part of this contest, but for their village, for their community.
It's such a joy to see them transform in so many positive ways.
Under the theme of quality education, these first generation learners have made sure that their parents and grandparents know at least how to get their signatures done for all their banking transactions. So that in itself is a huge achievement by the children of this age.
anybody who would be seeing this is bound to come out impressed by the efforts. Second point is brilliant idea, whosoever thought about it, Swapna and team, to blend rural and urban.
We just need to ignite that spark in them, and that's all is required.
Good morning all. Myself, Shivashruti from eVidyaloka, handling Tamil Nadu operations. It's my immense pleasure to take up leadership curriculum for the academic year 21-22. Leadership curriculum is a 3-month process in which it aims to groom the students who have an extra mile spark in their classrooms. Leadership curriculum is all about framing a small goal based on the SMART Cs, and the student will be working on the goals that they have framed for the next 3 months to achieve it. By the end of 3 months, the student will be giving a TED style talk about the leadership curriculum, a goal, and the process that they have followed to achieve that goal. This academic year was not so easy for the students and for the mentors for connecting for the classes as the schools were on and off. Out of all these things, we had 100 plus participations and 30 plus mentors who have mentored and groomed these students to achieve their goals. We started the process in the month of September 2021, and by the end of January we ended up, and the mentors have submitted the videos. We have got videos, and the students' participation was from 8 different states. And by the end of January, as we got in all the TED Talk style videos from the mentors, with the help of 20 plus jury members, we have evaluated the students' TED Talk based on the criteria given. LC leadership curriculum is not all about evaluating the students based on the TED Talk alone, but it is the process that the students have been evaluated. And finally, we have come up with 5 finalists who have done the process and the TED Talk so well. And here comes the memorable and cherishable moments of LC 2021.
I could witness a lot of positive changes in her. I wish her all the best in her future endeavors. Though
two projects, rainwater harvesting and solar power irrigation system. I have provided continuous guidance and the suggestions to achieve their goals by sharing the links related to their projects and making them understand the concept with the examples. But my main challenge was explaining them how to give the demo of the project and rehearsed with them. Gaurav is very happy about this program as he got to know many new things which will help him to stand out in this competitive world.
Dorothy is doing 7th grade in Panchayat Union Middle School, Esnakorai.
She has completed her LC project under my guidance. Basically, she is an introvert, and this project has helped her to open up. It has also boosted her self-confidence. I learned many things during the process. I understood the lifestyle of the people over there. Also, I had an opportunity to interact with them. These people have taken the project to the next level. They are following the steps suggested by our LC students Dorothy and Sadhana. Two big challenges we faced. One is the pandemic, schools were closed and many sessions were cancelled. The other challenge is the lifestyle of the people. Plastic is an important component in our daily life, and convincing them not to use plastic was a Herculean task for our LC students, and they succeeded as well. Hard work has paid off, and today Dorothy is a winner. And when I called her to congratulate, she said, "Na ipo romba dhairiyama irukken ma'am." That is the success of the project. Cause courage is an important quality for a leader. Thank you.
This year, I was provided with the opportunity to become a mentor to Anamika Mahato for the Leadership Curriculum 2021-2022. And we had a lot of fun during this 6-month sessions. Anamika was a very bright student from the start, if a little bit shy. But we worked on some ice-breaking sessions with fun challenges and games so that she could overcome her reservedness and open up about her dreams.
We have selected Vishnu Gaikwad and Shraddha Gule for our LC program.
मला इतिहास नागरिक शास्त्रामध्ये खूप इंटरेस्ट आहे. त्यांच्या ऐतिहासिक गोष्टी आणि मसुदा समितीवर बाबासाहेब आंबेडकर यांचे योगदान हे मला वाचायला खूप आवडतं आणि मला कर्सिव्ह रायटिंग लिहायला पण खूप आवडतं.
Hi everyone, this is Surya, your quiz master, and I am here today to give you a snapshot of Vijnana 2021 and 2022. Vijnana is a very special quiz, and one of the first words that comes to my mind when I think of this quiz is a word opportunity. Okay, the reason why I think of the word opportunity when I think of Vijnana is because this is one of the only few quizzes that reaches to the rural kids across the country. This year, Vijnana 2021 and 2022, the quiz was done for students studying in grade 8. Brought to you by LTI eVidyaloka and the quizzing partners. It was a huge task for Himadri and I to set questions, to decide the rounds, and of course brainstorm about how to take it forward. And of course we started off this quiz with a simple pen and paper round. Students were sitting in their own schools and writing, forming teams, and then writing the preliminaries and sending the paper back to us. The second round, of course, like last year, we've been seeing new quiz masters coming to do the second round, and these are all LTI volunteers. Somehow they seem to be smitten by this new quiz.
It was great interacting with the team from the corners of the state and knowing the knowledge they possess, the way they answered each question very diligently. It was amazing to know that the country's future is in safe hands now.
They've been very eagerly waiting for the Vijnana quiz to happen and to take up the mantle to host a quiz show. And unlike last time where we did a general quiz for all these people across all the states, this time we decided to be very state specific, because some of the feedback that we received last time was if this quiz could teach them something about their own roots, their culture, heritage, history, etc. And that is exactly what we decided to do.
we actually set state specific questions. But once again, these are all not easy questions. We of course had to put in difficult questions here and there because we wanted to teach them something about their own heritage and their own culture. So the second round, of course, was a very fierce competition, because from the second round, from all these states, we only reserved spots for 7 teams in the final. So the top 7 scoring teams from, of course, different states would make it to the final round is what was decided earlier. This was the very first time where we're doing a multilingual quiz, a multicultural quiz on a virtual platform. So when Vijnana happened a couple of years ago, and when the teams were competing from multiple states, we did have an offline round, so where the teams came to the LTI office and then competed, which made our work very simple. But this time it was completely online, and we had to translate the questions for everybody's benefit. These kids were very sharp, these kids were very smart. So what we did in the final was we to put up lateral thinking questions wherein they had to identify 4 or 5 images and then find the commonality between all 5 images. So again, this was an experiment that we had to do. We were again little reserved about if it could work, because this was also going live on YouTube and live on the Vijnana's website. And of course, if you had been watching the live as well, you would have been very, very surprised to know that these kids were cracking the commonalities between them within seconds without even asking clues from us. So not just that, we also had another round wherein they'll have to identify a sequence and then fill in a sequence. So something like, we showed pictures of Rahul Dravid, we showed pictures of MS Dhoni, and then we showed pictures of Virat Kohli, and then we asked what's the next picture. So we really thought they wouldn't put their thinking hats on and think, but then before even I could finish the question, the team for which the question was meant for shouted Rohit Sharma and said, "These are all ODI captains of India." After witnessing the quiz, I feel very glad that these kids are preparing a lot for the quiz. They've been reading a lot about lots and lots of things. It's helping them grow. Of course, we've been seeing kids giving us facts about things throughout the quiz. They're feeling more and more confident. Even last year when we were doing the quiz, sometimes they were a little shy to unmute and answer a question. But this time they were more enthusiastic. They were waiting for their turn. And then even before we could pass the question, they were so enthusiastic they would unmute and answer the question. Some of the top brass of LTI, even they wanted to come and watch this spectacular quiz. The top brass, in spite of their busy schedule, ensured that they were in the quiz. Of course, I would like to extend my thanks to some of these key people. Mr. Sachin Madhav, the Vice President of B1 from LTI. Mr. B.S. Saluja, the Vice President of Corporate Services LTI. Mr. Pratyush Kumar Panda as well, who is the Head of CSR and Sustainability at LTI. So thank you so much to Mr. Vignesh and to Mr. Vinod as well. So Vijnana, this year has been another great learning journey for us. We've learned a lot of things. We of course gauged the kids' knowledge about current affairs, about art, about culture, about history of India, about foods around the world, and we were very, very surprised to see that these kids are learning every day, and in fact are preparing for Vijnana quiz and even waiting for the quiz to happen every year.
Thank you. At this point, I am reminded of Abraham Lincoln's words, and I quote, "The best way to predict your future is to create it." The success stories of the children of eVidyaloka through the National Student Innovation Challenge, the Leadership Curriculum Program, and the Vijnana Quiz are the icing on the cake indeed. We are proud of our students, the leaders of our tomorrow, creating future with innovative ideas. Moving ahead, ladies and gentlemen, we now have the second roundtable on the theme Sustained Impact in Education. Sustained success is the making of the greatest possible impact over the longest period of time. A sustained impact in education carries immense power to transform because education is the cornerstone to sustainable human development. It is time now for another round of stimulating discussion, and I invite the moderator, Mr. V. Ramkumar, Member Board of Trustees of eVidyaloka Trust, to kindly take over. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Akshay. Pleasure to be here with a set of eminent panelists. Without much ado, let me quickly introduce my panelists for a very interesting discussion. We have with us Ketan Patel, the Managing Director, HP India. Ketan, as many of us know, has a strong passion for driving growth, accelerated transformation with very large scale, transformation as he has in his career. It's a pleasure to have you here with us, Ketan.
Thank you, Ram.
Thank you. We have with us Mani Kandan, Senior Vice President, Legal and Secretarial at Computer Age Management Services. We also call them as CAMS. Mani is a fellow member of the Institute of Company Secretaries, over 3 decades of experience across various types of companies. But more importantly, Mani, as we know, is extremely passionate about rural upliftment and social impact. Mani, thank you for being with us today. We also have with us Kumar Anurag Pratap. Anurag, he heads the CSR at Capgemini. Anurag brings a lot of experience, over 25 years of diversified experience in various shapes and forms: CSR, community development, grant management, capacity planning, resourcing and project management. I mean, we are looking forward to hearing a lot from you today, Anurag. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
We also have with us Dipendra Mathur. He heads HRD at Infosys BPM. Dipendra manages HR for about 12 global locations. Interestingly, he engages with about 40,000 employees and across 5 subsidiaries. I think that makes it really interesting there, Dipendra, and I guess a lot of stuff to actually bring the context of what we can do here in this today's discussion, where we are talking about inclusive outlook and having a sustained impact, right? And particularly a sustained impact in education. So with that, if I may maybe start with you, Mani. I know you actually have been a very strong supporter of education as a cause, been a pillar of support for eVidyaloka over the last many, many years. As a trustee and as a board member of eVidyaloka, we meet every Saturday, and the one thing that we always talk about is engagement levels across various partners, and invariably we get to talk about a lot about CAMS and about you, and I know you've been a supporter over many, many years. So the one thing that we always want to know, and this is very relevant to the discussion today, how, we say investing in education is, travels the greatest distance, right, in terms of social impact. But what, in your view, would be the most appropriate yardstick or the measure that can determine such an impact? Mani.
See, basically, frankly, if you look at when we started looking at these CSR projects, or when the government brought in this CSR as a statutory provision, we were looking at more like another form of tax where we have to spend an additional amount. And there was no clarity on the type of impact it will have and all. But over the years, now, if you look at it, the way in which the projects get implemented and the impact it is having on the society and all, we can see it is very huge. See, for example, the question what you are asking about the impact of education, while we look at the yardsticks such as the improvement in the grades or the improvement in the skill sets of the people, there is a wide, very long impact on the society as such. Because when I traveled to various villages, either through eVidyaloka or so other partners with whom we work with, we could see that it is addressing a lot of issues. For example, if you look at women empowerment, so this investment in this education through these activities is leading a long way. In many of the places, the local elementary schools were available at the village levels, and once the girls complete that 5th standard, and then they have to travel for another, say, some 3 or 4 kilometers to the nearest place for continuing the studies, the people were the first choice was to drop from the school and stop going for education. And the girls were also not insisting on continuing the studies because not much people around them where girls were studying. But after this, when we see this eVidyaloka or the other classes, they have cultivated the interest in the subject, and they now insist on attending the courses. Now the parents are also willing, because when the daughter is saying that I wanted to continue the study, they are willing and sending them to the schools. So this is the way of women empowerment which is being helped through these projects. Another thing is that actually the communal or the social disparities we have in each of these villages and rural places, every place, whether with any of these organization we go, there is a one thing which is very eminent, is the we divide between the based on the society, or these people are not allowed here or something like that. So these programs definitely address those issues, and definitely that social when they grow up after with all these education, these types of disparities will definitely go away. Similarly, this another thing is, when we look at the corporates, when we look for people with soft skills and all those things, most of the students in the educational, that in the rural villages, they don't have those skills, and even though they manage to pass the examinations and all, they lack the skills. But now we see that through eVidyaloka and also other partners, with these programs, like whatever you have even put the video and all, they have been helping a lot in the persons or the students to grow in their other fields also apart from this. So these are the yardsticks actually, like the social the divide being eliminated, this women empowerment, all those are the long-term yardsticks.
Very interesting, right? We're talking about creating skill development and readiness that addresses the need of the nation. And you're talking about inclusivity or reduction of division and inclusivity, and actually driving empowerment. And I mean, the important aspect that I want to touch about here is, we're talking about diversity, inclusion, and social impact. And who better than Ketan and someone who believes in diversity, inclusion, and social impact with sustainability initiatives. Ketan, they say sustained impact is not about the individual. It's also about, or more about, having a very large scale impact at the community level, right? And making the society more empowered through knowledge. Now, how does one drive sustenance? Your thoughts, from talking about scale and sustainability, I mean, your perspectives.
Yeah, Ram, I think this is the most relevant thing about how the economy and the society transformation happens. Clearly, it's never about an individual, right? It's about the collective might of how the power of literacy or education can make things happen. Like, look at world over, so many countries and economies have advanced through sustained intervention in the area of learning. And you can quote many such examples across various economies globally. Let's look at closer to home in India, how we have evolved, right, in terms of back during our independence time, we were having a literacy rate of 12% odd, with around 2,000 odd schools and 27 odd universities. And our GDP was in the range of around 2.7 lakh crores. And there was no specific intervention around technical or vocational education. And infrastructure was restricted to affluent sections only. To today, right? And there are so many interventions over the last 70 years which has happened through various stakeholders, including government, NGOs, a lot of volunteers, private sectors, a lot of improvement around education policies, may it be national education policy time to time, or formation of national education mission, commitment of spending almost 4.5-5% of GDP on education. What we are having today is 1,000 plus universities, 53,000 colleges, literacy rate up from 12 to 78%, and now emphasis on tertiary levels of technology. Now, what has this done to our country? And that is what we talk about, sustained impact for all and not for individuals. We are now on the path of third or fourth largest economy in the world. Much better infrastructure, much better healthcare, and opportunities of economic progress. Either it could be jobs or business. Indians, as most of us feel proud of today, are truly global and a societally acceptable people, which is making our Indians' position globally very differently. Our per capita GDP over the last 20 years is almost doubling, making sure that the lives of people is getting better and the overall living standard is going notch above. We still have a long way to go. There are tremendous level of dropouts, as I just heard one of the panelists talking about it. Student-teacher ratio is a big issue in the country today. Quality teaching, not just teaching, but quality and impactful outcomes is something which is important. Are some areas where we still have a lot of work to do, and we still have only 78% literacy rate, so we have 22% to go. But these interventions and continuous investments have made us where we are today. And as they say, that this is a journey, right? And this journey must continuously evolve to meet the changes of a fast changing and unpredictable globalized world. As things are changing, what we did in the last 70 years may be very different than what we will do next 50 years. And hence this evaluation has to be systemic, consistent, and scalable. And therefore, school teachers, college professors, administrators, researchers, policymakers, all of them and all of us together are expected to innovate the theory and practice of teaching and learning, and eventually measure impact and outcomes. Because merely giving learning and education is one, but eventually what is the impact we are creating brings in sustainable impact overall to the economy, to the society, and to the country at large. But this is one of the single most facet through which transformation can happen, and that's what all of us are very passionate about to make it happen. Ram.
Very interesting, very interesting. Ketan. I mean, systemic, consistent, and scalable, right? I mean, three very interesting pointers to this, and I think it was very nice and somewhat fascinating, should I say, to actually have this situation today where we say, look, we actually have as a country, our tomorrow is we always look forward to tomorrow being better than today, right? I mean, when you actually are growing at the rate that we are growing as a country, that's a very positive situation to be in, and that's obviously and as you said, what brought us here will not take us there. So, the last 70 years has been a different trajectory, and as we move ahead could be a different trajectory, which brings me to a very important point, right? I mean, if some of us, as we were watching the earlier panel discussion, Pooja was making a reference, the CEO of CRY, she was making a reference to a country where we actually have 333 million children, right, who actually are under the age of 18, and we as a country, as we have a quote unquote a very young population that needs to actually be taken care of. And we all know, the concept of demographic dividend, as we always refer. And Dipendra, I do remember your chairman, Nandan Nilekani's reference to demographic dividend many years back, and that we are seeing that, in action today. So if I may come to you, Dipendra, and you work across, 12 different locations, from all the way from Australia to US to Japan to Costa Rica and whatnot. And I know you actually, been, seeing the context of how the demographic dividend that we are in today is well positioned to, reap. India as a country is well positioned to reap, right, by virtue of its population. But as Ketan just pointed out, it is also going to be dependent on the quality of education that is imparted, right? So I may want to ask, your observations, right, that you may want to share from either your professional or personal experiences, right? And how are we as a country, how are we doing on this front, and how much more do we need to do? Dipendra.
Thank you, Ram, and very excited to be at this panel. First thing is that we tend to overestimate change on a short-term basis and underestimate it on a long-term basis. And I think that all the points that Ketan and Mani have made earlier is about the fact that, we believe that we are moving forward, but not moving fast enough. But actually, the change which happens is actually starts off as an incremental change, but over a period of time, really makes a very big change in the entire country or in the entire society that we live in. The demographic dividend was at one point in time, it was a curse when when the government started trying to curb the population. We saw that happening, and that same curse which was there in India, China handled it in another way, and it became from there. That curse actually brought about some good things for China, but then over a period of time started hurting China in a very big way. In India, we are fortunate that the population growth is now becoming more sustainable, and we are able to invest in several things. Whether it's education, whether it's healthcare, livelihood, and everything put together, we are able to make things better and better for the society in India. I think there are several opportunities which are there, but I'm absolutely optimistic about the fact that we are moving in the right track. The change, while it is scalable and sustainable and has to happen at a large way, I think there are a lot of micro levels of changes which need to continue to happen. And the role that digital education has on helping or catalyzing these changes is very important. COVID has brought about this kind of a change of testing different models of education, something which you have been doing very well for the last several years. So I think this is something which is really scalable, and it is something which has to partner with the traditional methods of teaching. It is also also the fact that the education policies over the years have become more and more progressive, and today the education policy, the national education policy, is more flexible. It is more inclusive. It allows people to study at different levels at different stages of their lives, makes education much more inclusive. So I'm very hopeful that we would be able to reap good dividends out of the demographic dividends that that all of us have been expecting for the last so many years. It's great times, it's exciting times, and this is really the better India.
Well, there we go, the better India. I'm sure Dimant is out there smiling at that phrase. Lovely. I mean, that was very interesting, Dipendra, and you could clearly see the sense of excitement, optimism, positivity that we are all kind of radiating in this conversation, right? Which is a nice situation to be in. And if I may come to you, Anurag, I mean, you've always been known as a leader driving digital inclusion and sustainability. And today's discussion is about an inclusive outlook and a sustained impact, right? If I can draw from Dipendra's reference to how COVID has resulted in different types of different models of education, and clearly we can see that digital education is now much more commonplace, right, than what it was. And we always keep kidding that the new normal, as they call it, after COVID has been the normal for eVidyaloka since 2011, and we obviously have seen digital education now get accelerated when COVID, being the chief technology officer, as our chairman Ravichandran pointed earlier. So if I may come to you, Anurag, and say, how do you see the digital model from a sustenance standpoint, creating a sustained impact on education? You're on mute, Anurag.
Apologies. One is, thank you for having me in this panel. Good to see some of the, I'll say, visionaries sitting in this particular panel and talking about outlook and talking about the future that is waiting for us. And I'll start with what Dipendra was talking about on demographic dividend. At one go, it looks very exciting to be in a country which is young and getting younger. But on the other side, if you don't do magic with this particular community, this demographic dividend will become a demographic headache for you. Because if you do not, in a very constructive manner, bring in the or direct them, their energies in a more positive manner, it will lead to a huge amount of unrest there. That's the challenge that some of the countries have faced. That's the challenge that we'll face if we do not, what is called, invest more on education, invest more on skilling, invest more on making sure that they get what is called fair and just share in the whole development process. COVID taught us that any disaster, it's not COVID, but any disaster has a differential impact on people. in education, it was easier for the middle class and upper class to move into online mode quickly. And it was easier for them to what is called access the content. The content was getting created for this particular section, looking at whether it's mobile friendly or not, whether it's a tab friendly or not, whether it's computer friendly or not. But we completely missed out the last section of students who were there in government schools where the digital infrastructure, or I'll say the penetration of digital infrastructure, was still, I'll say, the dream that all of them were having. I guess the initial, I'll say, from March till June of 2020, everyone was looking at ways and means to reach out to government school kids, ways and means to connect them with the digital revolution that's happening in other part of India. And I always say that India is, in the last 10 years, have become two distinct India. One India which is high on tech, high on digital expertise, high on what's called the knowledge on tech and digital. And they are using all these to access all the possible opportunities which are there. And there is a sizable India which is lacking all these things. COVID, in the sense, made this divide very, very prominent. So there were, I'll say, people were, there was what is called, I remember the laptops were in scarcity, the tablets were in scarcity because people were buying it left, right, and center. Middle class home or upper middle class or the higher class were having, I'll say, surplus lying there with them, and the government school kids were really looking for a instrument to get in there and access that. That was the main problem which happened. The second one was again on the whole edtech industry flourished during that particular period, but they were more looking at creating content which can be used by people who can provide them with the top lines. You are not getting, I'll say, a good product which is open source, which can be accessed by students in the what is called government schools. I'm not at all talking about low cost schools. I don't believe in that particular phenomenon, to be very honest with you. There's nothing called low cost. The point is there is a sizable population in India which still they're sending their kids to government school, knowing fully well that there is infra challenge there. There is, I'd say, challenge in matching the pedagogy with the present requirement. And the moment they get surplus, they start sending their boy child to a private school, girl child continues to go to a government school. In that particular situation, it becomes very important for many of us, many of our companies, many of our CSR to really identify these government schools and ensure that the content that we create is open source, which can be accessed by a student, and they should be at par with. And I always bring in this particular notion saying that they should be at par with the quality that the edtech companies are bringing in for the other India in that particular sense. That's what many of the companies, that's what many of the NGOs, that's what many of the entities did during COVID. Once they realized that, hey, this is not going within 2 months, the COVID is there for in this particular country for a longer period of time. You need to ensure that they should get a fair bit of and a just bit of and a dignified bit of reach on the infra, reach on the content, and reach on the material there. And that's what we tried doing it through consortium partners there, NGO partners in society. The whole aim was that can we do STEM education? Can we do hackathon? Can we do what is called bring in the coding classes to kids? Not making them coders, but making them problem solvers. The whole aim and intent was that can we convert this particular situation into an opportunity where they become creator of content rather than consumer of content. And that will, in the sense, bring in the sustenance to the whole movement there, because the moment kids are creating content, they are making it available. Largely what I've seen is kids are ultra competitive. The moment a child is doing, the other 100 child will do. And that is what is driving this particular space where more and more kids are getting into space to create content, make it available for other kids to access it. The whole work that we are doing at tinkering level, the whole work that we are doing at makers level, the whole work that we did at creating community learning center at slums, so that the kids can study using the limited computer and the uh, during the lockdown phase without missing out the classes there. We also ran a virtual, we use YouTube as a medium to provide content to teachers so that they can, what is called, pass it on to students using phones. We use WhatsApp bots in a very positive manner to reach out to kids there. But my take always is that there's a need, an urgent need to democratize the whole edtech in a way that it also reaches out to the base of the pyramid, because it's touching the tip of the pyramid or mid of the pyramid, but it's not reaching out to the base of the pyramid. And that's where we need to certainly look at that, how we create a movement where kids from marginalized background, excluded communities also get quality education that they're seeking. Then only we can create the India that Deependra was talking about. India which is standing with huge amount of confidence and huge amount of self-esteem there.
That was fascinating. I mean, talking about inclusive outlook, right? And this is about creating digital inclusivity and using digital as the means to drive the bridge, or let's say unifying factor between the two Indias you talked about. And I can't agree more. What was very, very fascinating was the reference to self-sufficiency in terms of creating, making the content consumers to be the content creators, right? And that kind of becomes a solutioning in itself. And that's also talking about sustenance, right? Let me come back to you, Mani, and I guess, we'll probably make this a little more rapid fire, if I may say, as a quick second round of a discussion. If you were to actually pick two factors to be the biggest contributor, or maybe one thing that you believe is the biggest contributor that would help a long-term and sustained impact for education, what would you pick? You're on mute, Mani.
No, it will be basically the better economic growth of the individuals involved, and also the improvement in the standard living conditions, which we have seen from the videos which you have been playing, the conditions in which the rural population is living, and the significant impact it can have when your alumni reach a stage where they are getting profitably employed in corporates, and they are acting as a role model for the others also, to show that their education has brought them such a big change in their life. That will be a significant factor.
So you see the living condition, economic growth as a critical contributor to driving sustenance or sustained impact.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Ketan?
Yeah, I think Anurag touched upon this very important aspect of India 1, India 2, which is a reality in this country. To me, digital equity is going to be the single most thing which will bring in sustenance in long run. Because as models are shifting towards more digital, this will become another barrier to quality education, or education for all, as we say. Because education for all in the old parlance was through making sure schools are available across nooks and corners, but education for the future is that there is certain section of the society which get power of internet and digital, and certain section of the society will not. And I think it's up to us in terms of how are we going to bridge this, because to me that's going to be the single most biggest challenge and opportunity for a country of our size and the kind of demographic dividend as Deependra was talking. So this is going to be a big one. I give you an example. I'm sure a lot of you watch movies, and maybe if you are also a Hindi movie, if you watch Hindi movies, and this is probably a little older movie, so maybe some of the panelists would have seen it, may not be the latest one, is a very famous Three Idiots movie. And in that, if you remember, there was one scene where Amir Khan, who is the lead hero, goes from one classroom to another classroom, irrespective has he enrolled for that particular course or not. And the essence there was that there is a knowledge getting transferred. I am absorbing the knowledge wherever it is available. And digital is going to play that role tomorrow. So if we are not giving our youngsters and kids that infrastructure of getting knowledge wherever they want, whenever they want, all the time, we are not going to really build a equitable society. And I think to me, and we are in this business, okay, as HP, we are in the business of computers, laptops, etc. And as Anurag was saying, we were running massive shortages in the last 2 years because of this transformation of moving to digital education. And we realize that as we are selling to part one of India, the part two is getting more and more divided. And then we had to run some very innovative programs of putting 40 computers into a bus, get into 4,000 different villages, and making sure that the students were imparted through making sure that the van moves around, the bus moves around various villages and gives them that opportunity which of learning, which was becoming a interruption in their life. But this is such a small, just one small step, right? It's just not this one, and many initiatives like this are run by various corporates, as Anurag was also talking about the work which they are doing. But it's going to be a collective work which government has. I'm very impressed by the way the union budget has actually announced a huge amount of digital education work, which I think is a great step forward. And I hope it gets executed as part of the vision document which they have put on the union budget. And then the power of all of us who are running companies, corporates, we are doing CSR work, and the work which you are doing at eVidyaloka is also phenomenal. And that's what I got impressed, and that's how I came as part of this panel. I think we have a collective responsibility. To me, this is going to be another area which will break society or unite society. And that's what we should be really focused on.
That's lovely. This is digital equity is the operating phrase, right? I mean, it could either divide us or unite us. Thank you, Ketan, and thank you again for some of those anecdotal stuff that you may have referred, but actually some of them are inspiring as well, inspirational, to be honest. And before I forget, you did mention about the union budget. It gives us, everybody at eVidyaloka, a lot of pride that, the finance minister called it out as eVidya, right? I mean, that's in itself something which we find a lot of resonance and pride in. Thank you again, Ketan. If I may ask you then, Dipendra, if I can pose the same question to you, what's the one thing that you would think is the biggest contributor for driving not only sustenance in education, but also driving it from a long-term standpoint, since we talk a lot about the demographic dividend?
Yeah, I think one thing which we face as a company and as an ITES industry is about the fact that while there is education, and of course over the pyramid of education, as people start dropping out, even the people who reach towards graduation, not many of them are employable. And this employability is something to do with employability skills, which are some of them could be soft skills, but could also be work-related skills, which our education system does not really promote. I'm glad that the new education system will promote that, but our education system was primarily based on creation of babus, and this is something that we had inherited years and in fact centuries ago from the British, and we've been slow in changing that. But I'm glad that it is changing. But ultimately, the return on education comes in when people find jobs for themselves and they are able to make their lives better. And if we are able to, have the right kind of interplay between skills as well as education, then I think we have got a winning combo. Some of the digital aspects related to how people can start becoming included in the digital education, how kids can start getting included in the digital education are some of the things that companies like Infosys is doing. That there is a springboard kind of an education which allows anybody from a 8th standard kid to any age to access all the stuff which is there around digital education, and supplement a lot of efforts which organizations such as eVidyaloka are doing, and just basically penetrate, go wider, go deeper, create many more opportunities. I'm sure that is going to be the big game changer.
Interesting. I love the phrase return on education there, Dipendra, and who better than you to actually comment. And we're talking about what we are seeking here skill plus education, collectively creating what we in eVidyaloka call as an empowered and knowledgeable society, right? I mean, that's really what we're talking about, creating an empowered society. Anurag, your take on the biggest contributor.
We need to somewhere, what is called, make government school a better place now. I always feel that there is a stigma attached to government schools. So we need to somewhere work around to remove that particular stigma and make it a center which provide quality education for kids. That's one bit that I strongly feel we all need to do. Second is that there's a need to collaborate together. And I've been in every place, wherever I go, I always tell people that education and skills are two subjects. And I completely, I'm in sync with what Deependra said or Ketan said, that education should be linked to your employability. Right? You can't, what is called, days are gone when people used to say that all the values and the poor should be custodian of value education, and the rich should be beneficiaries of all the modern pedagogies and approaches. So I don't believe in that particular thing. My take is that education should lead to employability. Education should lead to empowerment. And to do that, I strongly feel that keep these two spaces, education and skilling, and make it a collaborative space for many of the corporates to come together and work together. Because you can't influence the and impact a country like India, size of the population, size of the problem that we have, by doing it all alone. You need to collaborate together, and that's where in a number of places I say that keep egos and logos away when you're talking about education and skilling. Because the key problem with collaboration is that the moment you involve your marketing, you involve your you involve your branding team in the whole picture, they'll be like, Mera logo should be bigger than the others' logo. My contribution is more than the others. My leaders should get the more speaking opportunities. Huge amount of ego play and huge amount of logo play, which spoils all the collaboration there. And that's where I find it. One need to remove these two, and then only you can collaborate. And third is that this is linked to what Ketan and Deependra and Manikandan and even Anurag is saying. We all come from a large setup. We need to find ways on how we can bring in more digital infra to these schools and kids who are really looking for. We are happy, what is called, sending our old computers to recycler than donating it to schools. That needs to change somewhere. You can't have a digital equity if we continue with, I'll say, 98% of my old asset going to recycler because there is a value attached to it, and only 2% going to the communities. We need to find a balance in that one. And then only we can bridge that digital infra gap, which is there. That's a huge gap there. There's a huge hunger there at that particular level. And that's where I always feel that you provide all the facility to the sectional community that I'm talking about, and then let them compete with our kids. When I say our kids, I mean our kids. In most of the cases, they'll win because the hunger is huge there. Our kids take things for granted. They consider things that is coming to their side with huge amount of, I'd say, respect and care there. And that's what we all need to do. Collaborate more, make digital equity a reality, and then provide a level playing field to every kid to prosper and aspire, to dream and to realize those dreams. I'll see a very different India in coming 10 to 15 years or so. Because that's how you'll win the demographic dividend that you have in your hand. Otherwise, it will become a demographic nuisance for all of us.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more, Anurag. That was very well said. In the reference you made about, some of you must have watched what we presented as part of the NSIC, that we have the National Science competition that's actually run by eVidyaloka, where we involve rural children and urban children. You could clearly see, every child is a child, right? It doesn't matter where he or she is from. It's just giving them the opportunity to actually be able to articulate or bring out the what is in each child, right? Incidentally, the name RUBARU, the name for this annual event we have, comes from the fact that it is a combination of rural and urban, right? It's an anagram of rural and urban. That's really how we coined this out. We unfortunately have to come to an end. I am getting messages from Akshay that I have to close this, but I really have to say that, it was a very fascinating 40-minute conversation. My takeaways in the last discussion, keywords are about collaboration. We're talking about digital equity. We are looking to create an empowered society, and it has to be a holistic upliftment, as Mani pointed out. Thank you again, gentlemen. It's a Saturday morning for you to have taken time out and be in this discussion. It means a lot to us. It means a lot to a lot of people who are watching this, and we've taken a lot of insightful takeaways from this discussion. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And I
Thank
love
you.
the weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. And thank you to all the panelists for that informative discussion. It is said that education is the passport to the future. And as the panel so eloquently voiced, a beautiful tomorrow comes from a better preparation today, for sustained impact will echo generation after generation. Thank you once again for the insightful words. Dear friends, we now present to you the winners of the National Student Innovation Challenge, the Leadership Curriculum Program, and the Vijnana Quiz. Can we have the video, please? Congratulations to all the winners. Friends, now we move from the classroom to the screen and behind the screen itself. Yes, you got me right. I am talking about our beloved volunteer teachers. Ladies and gentlemen, volunteers are the strongest pillar of eVidyaloka. In fact, it can be rightly said that volunteering at eVidyaloka has emerged as a strong movement with a growing community of volunteers who are deeply committed to the cause of rural education. Let us now listen to the voices of our volunteers, the voices of the people who put our vision into action and whose actions shape and mold the present into a future that we can all be proud of. Can we have the video, please?
I enjoy volunteering. When I see the happy faces of the students I teach, I have a feeling of satisfaction. It is that feeling I get for having been a part of the movement that are helping the students. Too often, we underestimate the power of a smile, a kind word, a listening ear, and a honest compliment. All these things have the potential to change the lives of people.
I have thoroughly enjoyed volunteering with eVidyaloka. I am thrilled at the opportunity to be able to have an impact all the way from the US. I also am lucky to have a great setup at the school that I teach at in Karnataka. My sincere hope is to be able to do more of this and have a wider impact in the years to come. Thank you so much again. I look forward to volunteering with your organization for many, many years.
While I've tried to volunteer and mentor students who have been appearing for the NEET examination, I really feel it as a great honor as well as a great encouragement for my further endearments.
The thought that I can make positive, meaningful difference to the children in rural India motivates me every day to work as volunteer teacher, and I am happy to be part of this process even though I am living outside India.
Having been associated with eVidyaloka for over 6 years now has been life-changing. The feeling of gratitude each child brings with a smile on their faces and seeing their progress is blissful. Education is a basic need, and by being able to contribute in raising the young budding minds and see the future generation of India learn and grow is a very satisfying feeling in itself.
A day before my first class, lots of thoughts were rushing through my mind: how to teach the students virtually without any face-to-face interactions, and more importantly, whether they will understand what I am teaching and will I be able to clear their doubts. Finally, the day arrived, and my first class went very well, and I was able to teach, clear their doubts, and maintain the discipline in the class. Even the students were very attentive throughout. I was amazed with the process that eVidyaloka has for conducting the classes virtually. Volunteering helped me to gain confidence and build a sense of real achievement when one of my students excels and shines. Through volunteering, I challenged myself to try something different, achieve personal goals, and discover hidden talents.
आपके साथ का अनुभव बहुत ही अच्छा रहा है। आपका बच्चों के विकास के लिए और शिक्षा के लिए आपने जो भी प्रयास किए वो बहुत ही सराहनीय है। आपसे जुड़कर मुझे भी शिक्षा दान, विद्या दान देने का अवसर प्राप्त हुआ और बहुत बहुत खुशी हुई। आप सभी सदस्यों का भरपूर सहयोग भी मिला।
It gives me an immense pleasure to be a part of eVidyaloka. As Robert Ingersoll rightly stated, we raise by lifting others. And here I stand today, which wouldn't have been possible without the support of the team members, teachers, and of course my dearest students.
I'm extremely overwhelmed to have made a very beautiful connection with these children over the past few months. I guess it's only their curiosity and the hunger for more knowledge that always keeps me going.
Volunteering for me is a two-way process. I aim at learning from the vastness of child's mind as well as focus on imparting my refined knowledge to them. Conducting online sessions and making educational PPTs for these children has been an enriching journey for me, which not just made me nostalgic of my days as a child but also helped me brush my subject knowledge.
Teaching these kids helped me grow, learn and explore many things, and I have many beautiful memories with these children to cherish.
After coming to United States, I was not able to contribute to my country, nor I could pursue my passion of teaching. Fortunately, I discovered this incredible platform eVidyaloka through a simple Google search, and I quickly registered myself as a volunteer. I've been enjoying my time here at eVidyaloka from day one, teaching maths, watching moral stories with children, and every small interaction with these kids gives me immense pleasure. I also get to learn a lot from their innocence and a lot of curious questions.
The whole conceptualization of having a facility which can connect remote areas to the entire world. So hats off to the whole idea, the dedication and the determination to improve the I would say the education quality in our villages.
When I first started recording videos and teaching modules for children who did not have easy access to internet like most of us, I never expected for the response and reach to be so great as it did. Working with eVidyaloka was an eye-opener.
And it has been a really amazing journey with eVidyaloka all these years, and I have mentored my children in various competitions that eVidyaloka had organized, and I've seen them coming out of their shells and putting their thoughts on a bigger platform and talk about it more confidently than they were before. It was overall as a mutual learning than just teaching for me at eVidyaloka.
Teaching has always been my passion. Right when I was in India, I had received a lot of opportunities to teach students at home and also at church. But after coming for my masters in Australia, I always had it in back of my mind, when would I be able to actually teach kids now? When I found eVidyaloka, I was so happy. And then it was a magical ride from then on, right from the time where we could actually register to the discussions that we had with the other eVidyaloka members. And the actual magical moment was when I could actually record my classes and send them to India. The happiness that it gave me was undescribable.
It's indeed a great feeling to be a part of this super energetic family. When I joined eVidyaloka, I was little apprehensive about the effectiveness of the whole concept, the process. But in no time, the eVidyaloka board team put all my apprehensions to rest. I was actually enjoying my time with my children, the students who were sitting a few hundred kilometers away from me. I would like to give one small instance. One day, due to some technical glitches, I got a few minutes late to log in the classroom. In the meantime, I got a call from my students telling me that they are waiting for me. This love keeps me motivated, keeps me going on.
Thank you. Dear volunteers, thank you once again. This success of the eVidyaloka mission is the sum of all individual efforts repeated over and over again with rigor and conviction. eVidyaloka recognizes the contribution of our volunteers, and today we honor our volunteer champions who have traveled the extra mile to make meaningful impact. Can we have the video, please? Thank you, and congratulations to all the champions. There is an interesting word that has come into our lexicon in recent years. It is Voluntasia. Voluntasia is described as that moment when you forget you are volunteering to help change lives because it is changing yours. And our eVidyaloka volunteers are an embodiment of the spirit of Voluntasia. Thank you and congratulations once again. With that, we come towards the close of the event today. And I now invite Mr. Venkat Sriraman, our respected co-founder and member Board of Trustees of eVidyaloka Trust, to kindly deliver the closing remarks.
Thank you, Akshay. Wow, I'm literally gasping actually. I'm super flawless with energy and excitement actually. What a run-up of the last 150, 180 minutes actually. So thank you for giving this opportunity to express our sense of gratitude to the people behind what's we witnessed just now. Let me begin with thanking those lovely children for the beautiful rendition who inaugurated the event today. Ravi, Vishi, and our beloved Professor V. Krishnamurthy, thank you for the welcome address and setting the stage. Great to hear that. I mean, the COVID being the CTO, and we're working towards making a lovable world. My sincere thanks to our chief guest today, Sridhar Vembu, and our keynote address speaker, Pratyusha from LTI, sharing that message of the children of rural India are really the future of India, and quality education needs to be affordable to all. And EV is a boon to the children of rural India, and eVidyaloka's association with AVA is well cherished. What a privilege to have Mrs. Veena Naravane as a guest of honor today. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us. Thank you very much to Dr. Ramji Raghavan, Pooja, Dimant, Brinda, and Manisha for bringing out the best on the topic today. The key takeaway being the will to act, and this country really can, is the way forward for us with the talent, skill, and attitude as a focus, with a special mention on the access being the key factor. Thank you to all the NSIC, the leadership curriculum, and the Vijnana team for putting this together. As the quiz master says, very sharp, very smart. That's eVidyaloka children to you. What a world-class, truly and a high-quality education. Congratulations to all the winners. Thank you, Ketan from HP, Manigandan of CAMS, Anurag from Capgemini, and Dipendra of Infosys. And of course, our own Ram Kumar for an invigorating discussion. What a great thought they are put in table. The corporates conversing for overall societal development, which needs to be systemic, consistent, and scalable. And of course, finally, congratulations to all the volunteer champions today that we saw here, who actually represent every hero of the volunteering community. A big thank to each one of you for having eVidyaloka what it is today, actually. A very big thank you to all the patrons, donors, volunteers, partners, government whom engage with, our service providers, and of course, our own backend team of eVidyaloka. And last but not the least, the lovely children for what we experienced in a nutshell here as RUBARU 2022. Thank you for presenting the thought leadership through the guest addresses, the panel, and the action leadership through the wonderful excerpts of the eVidyaloka through various videos. Simply, thank you, Evians. And on that note, I'm so very thrilled and excited and glad to share that eVidyaloka is at a point in moment, what we call as taking off like that hockey stick steep curve, like that bamboo plant, which has invested in itself, in deep rooting itself enough for the last 10 years towards an exponential growth and impact in the next few years. Truly manifesting as a movement, as Brinda called out, with lakhs of volunteers joining hands, educating millions of children, digitally connected, working together as a nation in building it. Let's make this planet a better place. As Ravi called out in his welcome address, a lovable world. Of course, and thank you, Akshay, for presenting it so beautifully and making a very pleasurable Sunday morning. And over to you.
Thank you, sir. We all share the sense of excitement and pride as we close the curtains on the academic year 2021-22. Ladies and gentlemen, I now kindly request you all to rise in attention for the national anthem. Thank you one and all for being with us today and making RUBARU 2022 a grand success and a memorable one. This is your host Akshay Patil along with White Massive Event Management team signing off until next time. Have a very good day. Jai Hind.